A couple of years ago, I got a telephone call, and there was a lady on the other end, and she said, "Well, I can see that there's an Institute for Biobiology here, and we are interested in wanting to have some literature in English about biobiology. And is it possible to meet you?" And I said, "Sure." It was a Saturday, and a few hours later, she and her husband turned up in my office. And that was my first contact with biogeometry. I had never heard the word before. And as it turns out, was Dr. Karim and his wife ended up in my office there, and they wanted to just scan the literature, the books and so on, and then go away again. And he started to talk, and you will find out what that means when he starts to talk. He started to talk, and I don't know, 4 or 5 hours later we decided that we need to go and eat something. It was so interesting to listen to him, and Dr. Ibrahim turned out to be an architect as well, and educated in Zurich, so which is a very good technical high school. So we had something to talk about, and then he came with all this biogeometry information, which I had never heard about it. And we figured out that we should do something together because, and you might see that during the course of the course here, that these two things, biogeometry and biobiology, they fit very well together. There's another thing that I experienced already before, and that was feng shui. That was the closest I could get it to biogeometry, you know. And we did have a number of feng shui practitioners that figured out that the combination of feng shui and biobiology is very useful for both. And we have here Carol Cannon, who's in the lecture. She was one of these very first feng shui practitioners, and decided, with my help, to get started on biobiology. And since then, that was years ago. How many years ago?
I think I graduated in 95.
95 or something?
So it must have been 94 when I showed up on your doorstep.
So since then, you know, she has been very active in biobiology also, and is incorporating it into her feng shui practice, and also in her feng shui teaching, and very successful. So because of her, we get more and more feng shui practitioners interested in biobiology, which I think is very important. And now this biogeometry comes, you see, and we find that feng shui practitioners are suddenly very interested in biogeometry. Why would that be? Now, my take on it is, you know, and maybe it can be discussed, that feng shui is a very old way of interpreting energy flows and so on. And there are rules and regulations, and people do this. Okay, you hang a crystal here, and you introduce a color there, and whatever the remedies may be in these various schools. But the thing here is that how do you know that whatever you introduce here is working, is really helping? You can actually only ask the people, do they improve? Does the lady suddenly get a date, you know, that doesn't have a date for, you know, for so many years? Or, you know, is their health improving? Or whatever may be the cause for the consultation in the first place. And what people say, you know, it varies a little bit. You know, you cannot really often rely on what they are saying. So when biogeometry then turns out, and you will learn this here, you have actually something in your hand to figure out, to see whether the remedy that has been chosen is working. And I think that is one of the points in why feng shui practitioners are interested or could be interested in this. And that is, I mean, I'm telling you this, you have to find out during the course of the seminar here, and how this works, how do you do this. And in any case, I found it was extremely interesting and worthwhile cooperating with Dr. Karim and starting to run some seminars here. And I think over a period of 2 years we had quite a few seminars, you know, twice a year. The last one was where he talked for 2 weeks on his, you know, you wouldn't believe it, but he can do this. So I can assure you that you will be into something that is very interesting, and if you are sufficiently convinced, you will also learn how to utilize it for yourself. If you are not using it professionally, you can use it for yourself, for your own health benefit, or you can even incorporate that into whatever you are doing right now. We have a number of medical doctors, alternative medical, not only alternative, I mean MDs, if they are, you know, far away from all these medications and so on, that are using biogeometry successfully. You know, then architects, feng shui practitioners, and healers, and you name it. You know, this is all very exciting.
Well, good morning.
Good morning.
So we'll make a few introductions in the beginning, because biogeometry is something that, although it's based in architecture, although it started in architecture, it has somehow spread to all fields of life, because once you enter into the energy level, then you cannot say it belongs here or it belongs there. The same laws apply everywhere. So in making a seminar, it is very difficult to address everything. At the same time, we have to make choices, and we will make the choices according to your interests and your professions. I will try to give examples that relate to you, so that I'll try not to miss anything here. So we will sort of, I don't think I need to introduce myself. Helmut did that. I mean, basically, I'm an architect, and I noticed that when we design as an architect, we are really not working with shapes or materials or such thing. We are really sculptures of space. This is what we really do. Because although the building is there, we build all that and look at all those forms and all that, but you don't live inside the walls. I mean, we're not like termites, we live here in the space. So our job is to sculpture space. Now, when you sculpture something, there is something that you call the forming process. You see, how to form something. And to form something is totally different than to shape something. You see, you can take a block of stone, you can form it and shape it, and they're two different things. But a better example would be to say, when you have a child, you don't shape the child, you form the child. Form the child, that means you form the essence of that child. It's a personality that gets formed. It's the whole essence. It's something that's alive. So one thing that is a criteria of forming is bringing life into something, shaping, not less. And that means that an architect, when he is forming space, he has to bring life into that space. So he has to know what are the criteria of life. And criteria of life, like mental aspects are part of life. Emotional aspects are part of life. But how are they part of life? I mean, they must be put in such a way, in such harmony, that they interact. In life there is motion, there is growth, there's all aspects of life. And that's the forming process. So I asked myself, okay, now let's see what we do till now as architects. What we do is, okay, we look at the functional aspects of forming. I won't go too much into that. We all know that. I mean, I design a space so that you can move inside the space to do the proper functions and play that. And then with those functions today come so many new aspects in modern technology that are giving us problems, but we need them for those functions. Then we have materials, new technology and all that. Then we have, let's say, a sort of psychology of space. We place colors in such a way, how you feel space, how you feel proportions, how you feel cramped or not cramped. So this is what people call the human dimension of space, taking man as the measure of all things. When I say man here, it's men and women, I mean, it's gender. So but when we look at what are we doing in this aspect, saying that, oh, the red affects me that way, the blue affects me that way, and this, it is all very vague. So people cannot take this aspect of any science, this way of relating to proportions, to colors and all that, they cannot take it in a serious scientific way. If we don't find a way to put all that into a science that can be tested, verified in proper research, then we are nowhere near playing an effective role in the evolution of our modern civilization, which is based on technology, whether it's information technology or whatever technology. We have to play a role in that thing. So I asked myself, okay, now we went a step further, we can see the vitality in the air, ionization in the air, we put ionizers, we put things like that. Okay, this is a good step into it. But then we have another aspect, all those electromagnetic fields. What are we doing with them? So there are so many things that have to be dealt with that are part of this invisible energy that you are sculpting here in this room. But this energy that you're sculpting in this room has so many aspects in it that we have to see its relationship to us. Now I'm just introducing the way we came in, but we'll go into that in detail. But we have to deal with, if there are what we can label as emotional energies that we take and give out and breathe, that we interact with. If they exist out there, something that you can touch, then we have to find out how to interact with them and how they interact with us. And that's part of the forming process. So we are forming what we would say the architect has to form the collective aspects of emotion, of mental, of intellect levels, of spiritual level, all that. All those levels have to be formed in a collective way. Now, if we have to do that, that means it takes architecture to a new dimension. Now we have to understand this thing in this room. If that means there is a collective, if it has collective emotions, collective mental, that means it's a collective form of life in this room. That I'm dealing with a being who's alive. But this being who's alive, we call it collective from our point of view. But from the Earth's point of view, it could be the individual personality of the Earth and we are just cells living inside it. Now, how do we interact with this being and how do we bring sort of harmony in this interaction, that we benefit from it? So all of a sudden the forming process is not just something that has to do with putting a sort of a certain style out there in the market that everybody appreciates and can see, oh, this is Ibrahim's style, we know it anywhere and all that. This is not really architecture. This is sort of letting the ego play its role, out. So we have to understand now, this energy out there. So an architect now, he is really somebody who is working with energy. Forget about all the rest now, we have to go to that level. Now once you go and work with energy, then there's no architecture anymore, and there's no medicine anymore, and there's no healing anymore, there's nothing anymore. It's all one. You see, it's like you say, I'm an individual, okay, that's me, that's you, but then go more inside and inside and inside, and you're in the middle of the whole universe then. So it's like that. So now biogeometry is all of a sudden applicable to everything, because the laws are there everywhere. Now, when we work with biogeometry, work with this space, we must not forget that we are still using physical things, like we're using paint, we're using electricity, there's so many things that we are using. And if we are using all those things, we cannot imagine applying anything on the energy level in biogeometry while doing the wrong thing on the physical level. And that's why the link with biobiology is very important. I try to impose biobiology into all my architectural projects. It is very difficult because you're fighting against some forms of modern technology, and that's where the difficulty arises. But you cannot say, I'm going to balance the energy in this room and then put toxic paint on the wall or something like that. So first of all, if you can't learn to detoxify your environment, your building, it's even if you can solve it with some energy principles in biogeometry, the awareness of having toxicity and not dealing with it, the awareness of doing the wrong thing will hurt you on the long run. So it's very important here. It's not by chance, for example, that biogeometry, I'm giving biogeometry seminars with biobiology, with Helmut, maybe because I'm the nearest thing to a German in Egypt or something like that, and we can sort of interact together. You know, it's not that. It's because really there are two important things. You have to have an awareness of what you put, what kind of varnish you put on the wooden floor, what kind of things you do like that. If you don't have this awareness, you're not really benefiting from everything. So biogeometry is working on the energy level, but it has to be taken out into every aspect of your life, and then you have to rethink all that. That's how all of a sudden now you say an architect is speaking to Feng Shui practitioners. That could be as more logical. I mean, this is we're cousins. But what does an architect have to do in speaking to somebody about homeopathy, for example? And why speak about spirituality or something like that when he's an architect, he's not a preacher? I mean, why? But because on the energy level, you have the solutions to all those different aspects that when you tackle from the outside, they could seem very complex. And we deal it from the inside. So you have here a sort of a program. And I say try, Helmut, I try to stick to the program. It's very difficult. So you have some titles there. So I will form, see we're speaking about forming. So the first thing we have to form is the seminar set. So I will form the seminar through interacting with you, through what you tell me and what you don't tell me. I'll try to take it in and put it in the material so that it relates to you. The titles that we have there are a vague guide like this. So don't feel that, he wrote his speak about this and he didn't go deep enough into something. You can always ask me in the break, say, can you go more into this or more into that? I might say things that are not there at all. It depends who is here and what they want. So we'll make it very, very casual. The main thing is that you understand everything. Now there's another aspect that we are going to do. We are going to use drawings. I'm going to sort of develop every idea by drawing. And then, at the end of the day, between 3 and 4, we'll make a sort of a session with overhead slides and all that. We'll keep all the slides in one session because they disrupt a bit if I'm going to use the overhead projector all the time and point to things, and at the same time they disrupt the camera because the light goes darker. And between 3 and 4, it's a good time to give you a chance to sleep, when I'm putting the slide. Yeah, if you find me standing up like that and silent more than 5 minutes, then you know it's the jet lag I'm seeing. Just make this like this and then wake up again, okay? So, now, can we, I'll start from this end, we go like that. And please, this is not introducing yourself in such a way, my name is so, I do this. No, it's really telling me what you're interested in, what you would like to interact with in those next few days. The more you tell me, the better we can interact. Okay, can we start this way? And raise your voice and so that they all hear.
Okay, my name is Bessa. I'm also an architect, and my main interest is design and how to apply the principles of design. And I certainly believe what you were talking about. I mean, I had a pursuit since about 20 years ago to build buildings that would elevate the human spirit. And I called Helmut back then, about 15 years ago, I guess when he had just come to the States. And he talked about biobiology, but it wasn't quite there. And I think, to me, biogeometry is a little bit closer. So I've read a lot about Feng Shui, but I felt a lot of the things that I read were very commercial. They weren't in depth. So I think, your course was more geared towards what I was hoping to do in my profession.
Okay, thank you. Now, at the far corner there, I have Laila, my daughter. Now, she is somehow born into biogeometry. I mean, she's for her, probably, I mean, it's her natural way of life. And when she's here studying in the University of Sacramento, maybe see all what we're speaking about, to her, but she was born that way. And so I let her introduce herself from there. Come on, you have to say a word. That's Laila, my daughter. Then stand up and raise your voice.
I'm actually certified in geography, and I'm studying nutrition right now. At the same time, I'm studying university marketing and public relations. I did study aromatherapy for a while, and like you said, biogeometry is a way of life for us. And I want to follow his footsteps, so everything he says is interesting for me. And I always attend the seminars from the beginning because he always says something new every single time. And it's too interesting to just miss them all. So whenever he's here, I always come and attend the seminar. So I try as much as I can to attend all. Sometimes I can't. So I'm here this time.
That's nice to hear from a daughter. Maybe because they are not teenagers anymore. So now, when we are learning something, if what we are learning can play a role towards solving the problems that we face, starting with the most important problems that we face in humanity, then it has a reason to be there. Otherwise, it has no reason. If we don't play a role in making this world better, then we're just playing on the sides. So we have to find what are our problems today, what are our dire problems today, and how can we sort of find our role in making a difference in those problems. Now, many of you feel it that what I'm saying when I'm doing Feng Shui, when I'm doing this, when I'm doing spiritual work, that I feel that there is a lack of scientific grounding, and people here who are scientifically minded will always look at me like that, a bit down. It's like when you see a surgeon, you see, and a psychologist. The surgeon will always think that he's the real thing because he really has something there in his hand. He can take an organ out, here it is, you know. But what the psychologist takes out, nobody sees it. So, and that's the big difference. This is, we think that we need scientific validation, and since we don't have it, we feel lost of it. We don't have it in many of our disciplines. This is a problem. But the other thing is, people are saying, well, the other side who have the scientific background, who are really playing a role in our modern society, who are really, they play the main role in modern civilization. I mean, they're the mainstream, we're just playing on the side there. We're trying to come into the mainstream, but we have no way of entering with them in their scientific way of thinking. They, actually, this way of thinking, this scientific way of thinking, has produced modern civilization. It has produced such comfort and so many things in life like no other civilization before. And this is something that we have to acknowledge. We can't fight against it. It's there. But the problem is, it's not a solution either. You see, we're discovering every day that it could be at the expense of our health, our energy field, and all that. So are we building a very advanced civilization at the expense of mankind at the end? You see, comfort is not the solution to a problem. See, what's you're comfortable but you're sick. So what? I mean, okay, giving you a longer lifespan is not a criterion. It's the quality of that lifespan that really matters, you see. So we go and we have a longer lifespan, but the 10 years we get, or the 20 years, those last 10 years we're spending in the medical institutions and all that. So where's the quality here? Were those 10 years worth it? Or were just being given something that's a bad quality, but a good quantity? Something is wrong here. So we should try to find out, okay, what are the problems that are being caused by modern technology? What are the problems that really matter? And when I mean really matter, I mean that our modern technology is so potent that it could really destroy life on Earth. So when we take problems, we should go to the most important problems, and that's global life extinction. See, because what's you saying, okay, we made a fantastic civilization, life ended on Earth, but everybody was happy with a nice house and a nice child and all that. Okay, so but it ended. So let's think, which is the problem that we face the most? Thinking first about warfare, nuclear warfare, things like that. And when you are aware of something, then you can probably find a solution. See, when you're aware of the problem. So the first thing is being aware of your own problem. Now, probably, I mean, many people think the problem is still there. We're not really completely out of the danger. But I think with time, we will soon, whether it's nuclear, whether it's biological, whatever kind of weapons, I mean, since we know that they're a potent danger to us, we'll probably master the situation. Now, okay, this one we know about. Let's take the second one, environment. Now, we have become aware of environmental problems. And if you're aware of something, then probably again we'll find solutions. So we're already starting to find solutions. Although here, like Helmut was telling us before, the solution is not easy. It's very difficult in modern industrialization to find solutions that go against it. And when you tell them, for example, you have to reduce the car exhaust by so much in the streets, see how much this will cost the car manufacturer at all those places. So it's not always easy to control the environment in such a way, but at least we are aware of it. And when we are aware of it, that means we are in constant discussion. And that brings this one probably into a solution sometime in the future. I say probably, because this is a very tricky subject. But then there is a sort of a distant chasm to this environmental thing that we are not aware of. It's there and we are not aware. And that's the big danger. No civilization has completely ended by something it was aware of. They've always ended with something that hit them when they were not aware of. And what is that? Unfortunately, it's the age of information. The age of information is the time bomb, is the thing that can, overnight like that, can end life on Earth. How come? How come the age of information, that very important thing, can end the life on Earth? We're never aware of that. Now, look at it that way. The age of information depends on all the media transmission, all those waves in the atmosphere. So we are depending on something. Before I go into more details, let's take it just from the quantitative point of view. We say, okay, this mic that I have here is transmitting at such a low, let's say, type of energy. It's not like the electromagnetic field is not like a big transformer or not like something like that. So really, you can put it on my body, and when I open the TV transmission, the radio transmissions, all those things, and now we're to the wireless internet age. Now all your equipment, your computer equipment now is going to work with modern Bluetooth technology and things like that, and you're going to have your computer communicate with your telephone, with your printer, with all that, all wireless. So what's happening here? You say, okay, these are minute compared to what? Compared, okay, to what you feel, okay, to whatever you feel. Now let's take the level of electromagnetism inside the body, between the communication between the cells. And it is 1 million times smaller than what we are using. So it depends, minute compared to what? See? Now, a cell trying to communicate with another cell is somebody trying to move a breeze through a storm. There must be distortion. So what happens is, if your body cannot communicate the proper information, how can you process it? That means your body is going into its own self-destruction due to wrong information, because the information is being completely disrupted by all those energies. That's just on the quantitative level, not going further. And that's the least of my problems, the quantitative, although it's, see how far it goes? Now what it's doing, the immune system is always trying to fight. And we think that, okay, I can lower pollutions outside, all type of pollutions, I can lower them, and the more I lower them, the better my immune system can recover from the effect of all that. But I try to lower them below the threshold of my immunity. They have to be lowered there, and that's what I do all the time. Now, by the time I lower the pollutants, the toxicity, and all that by 10%, I am adding waves in the air by 100%. See how fast we're doing with cell phones and all that. So what am I doing? Here's my threshold. I'm lowering the toxicity of pollutants that way, but at the same time, the waves, those electromagnetic waves, are pushing down the threshold of my immunity. Now, the difference between those two, this is supposed to be the normal. When it gets pushed down, we have to, then we call it allergy. Okay, but what brought it by? Somebody's pushing the immunity down. So you can't, when you're speaking about what pollution, you cannot speak quantitative. You must speak its relationship to me. So unless you take my immune threshold into consideration, unless you see that this one has to be higher than this one, so while they're lowering this one, I'm pushing up this one, unless you do that, what will happen is, one day, you'll have so many of those waves that the immune system will not be able to cope with it. And it will just collapse. So we could be living happily and going, and then one day, collapse of the immune system. And when this happens to animals, plants, and everything, maybe at different times. But what's happening? Immune systems will start collapsing, and no medicine, nothing at all in the world can help you if the immune system collapses. It's just the end of life. So you see, the information technology is the invisible thing that could bring global destruction on Earth. And until now, I'm speaking about quantitative only. Wait till I go into the qualitative, and it's really scary. So we'll take a couple of minutes break now.
Now, when we are speaking about levels, quantitative things, and that's how we think, we get, for example, our fruits. And then we think that we can give them a very minute level of irradiation in order to give them a longer shelf life. So we do that and think that these are the safe levels. And this irradiation is used everywhere. We use it in X-rays, we use it in the airport scans when you go in and when you go out and all that. Okay, it might be totally ineffective on a normal person because he goes through it, maybe this effect of radiation, okay, puts down his immunity a bit, he goes out in the sun, he walks a bit and it's bad, and maybe if you look at it from that way, then it's totally harmless. But let's say somebody had cancer, he got operated and now he's recovering and now he's okay. But it's just, you know, like that, and any little thing could trigger something again. How do you know what is too little and what's, I mean, bad is bad and good is good. But we think now in good and bad, always on a quantitative level. And that's what we have to change now. We have to introduce a science of quality. And that's very difficult. How can I introduce a physics based on quality? The physics we're going to study, and this a new kind of physics, and that's biogeometry, and it's a physics of qualitative measurement. And this is very easy to understand when we compare what's qualitative measurement and what's quantitative measurement. Now, quantitative measurement, and that's our modern science, has so many criteria. First of all, the measurement has to be objective. That means a centimeter or an inch is an inch, whether I am in the room or not in the room. So quantitative measurements are measurements where the person doing the measurement is not part of what is being measured. See? So if I draw a line and measure it and say this is 2 inches long, I'm not part of that measurement, because if you measure it or you measure it, it won't grow and it won't get smaller. It's the same ruler and everybody. So this makes it objective. That means we can all work with it and all that. But if you start saying, oh, I like the line, I don't like the line, the line is this, the color this, then I can't say in a formula a 10-inch beautiful line. Now, what's beautiful here? See, beautiful means somebody has to say it's beautiful. But there's somebody, if it changes, then he might say it's not beautiful. So we have to keep ourselves out of the measurement. Okay, that's the first step. But what would this lead to? It leads to a whole civilization where we are out of the measurement. See, a whole civilization is built where we are not taken into consideration. It is built from us, from the comfort point of view, from this thing point of view. But if we are not part of the formula of the measurement to begin with, then this thing has a problem. It's like somebody born with a problem and will grow with that problem because we are not part of it. Now, what is qualitative measurement? Is a measurement when we are part of what is being measured. Because we are going to go into some things that will seem a bit scientific or too scientific, but I'm going to simplify them so much. We have to see that how we perceive the world outside us. If we don't go from the beginning and see who are we, how do we perceive reality, how things work, if we don't see all that, then there is no way of understanding qualitative measurements. So when you understand that line that is, before you say it is 2 inches long, okay, it is 2 inches long, but that line does not exist outside you. What exists outside you is a certain energy configuration. If you're looking at it with a microscope, it's a certain energy configuration. This line is a certain accumulation of energy along a certain path, and it's constantly interchanging with this environment. So it's just an energy thing. As far as our body is concerned, whether that line exists on paper or whether I do that in front of me now, the effect on the energy level is the same. See, I created an energy path. So whether you see it or you don't see it, it really doesn't matter. Okay, but it is perceived where? What creates that line? This energy pattern is perceived, and the brain creates colors, shapes, lines, and all that, and then projects them. It projects them outside in front of you. So you are measuring something in which you took part in creating anyhow. So by saying objective, even on quantitative, you discard that this thing does not exist except in a subjective person. It wouldn't be out there anyhow. Okay, how come we all see the line the same way? I mean, how come does it change from one person to the other? Because we are all made in the same factory. Same brand, same everything, same mechanisms, of course, yeah. But just take another species, take a dog or a cat or something, and then it might perceive the reality totally different. And this shows us some people who think, okay, I interpret reality, I don't create reality. That means all this exists exactly like I see it. It exists out there. Then there are certain waves that hit it, bring it in, and then I take it, and it goes into the nerves as a sort of a nervous pulse. Then my visual center in the brain, my auditory center, and all those centers recreate what's out there. So it's like putting, you have a picture on your computer, you put it on a disk, then give me the disk and I recreate it on my computer. This looks very logical. But if it was like that, if in reality there was one reality that we are recreating, so every species should be creating the same thing exactly. But it doesn't happen. You take, every species sees a different reality. Then how can we say that we are translating a reality? We must be forming a reality. Now, how do we form a reality? Forming a reality is something that out there's what we call an energy soup. It's a soup. It's just a lot of energy. And look at that, this energy, if I compare it, to give you an example, it's like having, you know, a prism, and you have light going through the prism. Light is colorless, but if I put a prism, it will give me 7 colors on the other side. But then the light itself is colorless. So my prism has somehow differentiated things out of the total. But the total, since it has everything and its opposite, then it has everything and nothing, just like the light. And we are just sort of refracting parts of it. And this is how reality really is. Out there, the totality of information has everything and its opposite. And if you have everything and its opposite, then you have, some people try to speak about the state where you have everything that's opposite, and there's some people call it chaos or things like that. It's not chaos. I mean, by chaos means we cannot perceive something in it, but actually it has the totality of information. But now I come and mentally go into that totality and create a pattern. With this pattern, sensitivity pattern, I pick from the reality into the pattern. So I have reality. So you see? So consciousness is a way of getting a pattern, a certain pattern, to create a certain thing out of a reality. So imagine now that I have a big jar, and in this jar I have grains of sand. It's full of sand, but the grains of sand are in different colors. What you see is just sand. Now I wear special glasses that only show me the green color. So all of a sudden I see trees in the green color because I only see the green color. But it's, you see, you say it's in there. Yes, but there must be a pattern making thing, a color making thing, and there might be in the green colors, there's a secondary thing, a sort of which one of the greens fit into the pattern and which one don't. But this, let's not go too deep into it. But at the end, you get a pattern. Now, if I put red glasses and go in there, I might see totally different things. So this is how the universe is. You could have 100 universes, 100 dimensions, 100 worlds, 100 beings, or millions of beings living right there. Looking at it, it's all colors of grains of sand in one jar. And it's all those dimensions. Now, if you didn't have your glasses, the colored glasses, could you make anything out of the jar? You have to have the different colored glasses to make something. What are those colored glasses? They are our senses. In order to understand the figures in one color, I have to wear glasses that show me one color and keep all the others out. So the whole thing of the senses is limitation and not expansion. Limitation through a pattern. Why I'm saying a pattern and not just color? Because I take color as an example, but when I use the word pattern, that means the pattern is a choice of color, sound, and it's more a whole thing. But it's just like choosing a color. A pattern includes color, shape, it includes more. So your pattern creates what you get out of the jar. In reality, you are also a pattern within the jar, and there is no jar. You see? Because when I say jar, it's just to make you visualize it first. I put you outside it. But then when you ask, who am I? I'm just another pattern within the jar, you see. So there's nothing but all that. If you understand this, so how can a grain of sand inside the jar interact with shapes with others of similar thing? How can this have a life of its own there if it's at the same time, if it has all those different colors of sand on it? It cannot even see the other color beside it. It must have senses that limit it to its own color and pattern and keep everything else out, and all of a sudden you have a world like ours, you see. And that's from this concept of the jar, we're going to go into the senses. Now, why am I going to go into the senses? I go into the senses for one thing, because I want to find qualitative scales. You cannot have any physics or any type of science if you don't have a measurement scale of that science. But so we need a scale of quality. I need to have qualitative scales. Instead of having just quantitative, I need qualitative. Now, where do I find qualitative scales? I cannot find them except in our brains, because we produce the qualitative scales. Like color is a qualitative scale, sound is a qualitative scale, but it doesn't exist outside. Outside you have a movement of air. You see, there's no sound.
Air that moves, because you know, if you have a certain sound and you have also the opposite at the same time, you have nothing. And this concept is a bit difficult to understand, but I'll simplify it very much and we'll be able to go along. But let's see first what is the importance. I mean, you're going to say he's speaking about physics of quality. Now, can quality really be physics? Because it's subjective again, and what's the use? Any scientist will come in and say, oh, this is rubbish. I mean, the physics of quality, what's the physics of quality? You cannot call it physics. It's just another art. I mean, and you won't just calling it physics just to feel happy about it. Yeah? But we say, and then you say you're using pendulums. Oh, we know that pendulums are used in a psychic manner for divination and all that. It has nothing to do with science. But we are going to slowly go into it and see that there must be the world of quality. That there must be, we are working, nature works in qualitative aspects, never in quantitative. The quantitative is always one face of the coin, and the qualitative is there, so nature always balances between the two. It doesn't take one alone. So we go back, in order to understand this, we go back to ancient Egypt. Not because I come from Egypt, it happens to be coincidence, but we have to go back there, you know. It's like Back to the Future. If you want to go to the future, you have to come with me back to Egypt. So, now, the Western civilization started with the Greek philosophers. And we call Pythagoras is the most known of the fathers of our sciences. And we have Thales, we have others, but Pythagoras is the most known of these. And Pythagoras is the father of mathematics, and the father of music, and the father of so many sciences. And it's this Greek way of thought that brought us our modern civilization with all the aspects of logic, quantitative thinking, and all that. But all those Greek scientists or philosophers went and were trained in Egypt. So Pythagoras went to Egypt and he stayed for 22 years in the temples of Egypt. He got a letter from the governor of the area where he was living in Greece, and the governor was a friend of the Egyptian pharaoh. So he gave him a special letter that Pythagoras is going to study in Egypt, and please let him, put him in the temples to study the esoteric sciences in Egypt, the secret sciences. Because Pythagoras, his father, saw in that child a link to Apollo, and they call Apollo the Pythian, and from the word the Pythian, he changed the name of his mother to Pythia and called the son Pythagoras. So the whole thing was into the Apollo cult, and he thought this one is, they used to call him the son of Apollo. So he has to go to the mystical schools of Egypt. And he asked the Pharaoh to let him go in. So Pythagoras went there, the Pharaoh told him okay. So he went near Cairo, there, first to Heliopolis, where this is the most famous places called Un. They have the most famous learning centers. And they told him, oh, it's very nice what you have for us, but we don't have it here, you know. I mean, there are no, we don't do the esoteric teachings here. So, I mean, it's the way of just not accepting him. So he went to Thebes. He kept going to different places, and he got the same answer everywhere. We're not teaching anything here, it's just those sciences that we know. Who told you there were other sciences? So he went back to the Pharaoh and said that he wouldn't accept me anyway. And then somewhere near Karnak and Luxor there, when he went there, the Pharaoh told him, no, go back again. And when he went there, they were afraid now, because it was an order from the Pharaoh. And they accepted him there, and he stayed 22 years studying this. Now, we are going to take many aspects of what we are doing. We're going to take them from the, let's say Pythagoras is a coin like that. On one side you have the Western civilization, and on one side you have a teaching that he was not allowed to divulge. These are secret teaching, he can't speak about it. You know, one of his inner school of Pythagoras school was he was quoting recently, told him he would have to say what the master is teaching him. And it's a famous story where he cut his tongue. He cut his own tongue, so even if they tortured him, they couldn't get anything out of him, because this was a secret thing. And it's not, you were not here, it's not a commitment that you made to man, it's a commitment that you made to the universe. And the universe, when you make commitments to the universe, it's something that you can't just break. Now, we will try to take what Pythagoras is saying and turn it around and go back into the temples of ancient Egypt. So we'll imagine ourselves like students who are allowed to go into those temples. Maybe now we're lucky, because now we have the permission to go in. Maybe at his time he didn't have the permission. So let's go in there and see what Pythagoras was saying. Pythagoras has a very famous thing, it's called the monochord. The monochord is just a piece of wood and a string on it. And this is his monochord. He had seen all those musical instruments in Egypt where they were playing. They had all those things like all types of small guitars, mandolins, and all those types of things at large array. So he just took one instrument that had one string. And the importance of this instrument, I mean, just one string, what's a string, can be seen from the last word that Pythagoras said when he was dying. You know, at the end of his life, Pythagoras, after they burnt his school and all that, some people say he died in the school, some other things they said he went into a temple and stayed there for 40 days without eating or drinking until he died in that temple. But what was his last word on his deathbed? He said, I want to hear a note on the monochord, just one. Like the monochord, he heard it and then he died. And this was the greatest thing for him. So what could be there? What could be so important in this saying? I mean, just play a note on the monochord. The monochord is on a string. If you put your finger in a certain proportion, you could actually play a certain musical note. You change the proportion, play another note. So, and then when you make a proportion and you make half the proportion or double the proportion, you get the same note on another octave. So what are notes? The string moves air. Notes are produced by our brains. So notes are qualitative scales, are qualitative measurements. Now, proportions on the string are mathematics. So it's no coincidence that he was the father of music and mathematics. It's no coincidence that he said the whole universe was numbers, and at the same time he would say the music of the spheres, because on the monochord they were one. Now, a monochord where you could convert quality into quantity, you see, mathematical ratio to a note, means that they are both the same thing. They are both, if you can convert a centimeter to an inch, then you think your inch here is more accurate than the centimeter we use maybe in Europe and in Egypt. I mean, they're both exactly the same thing. Convert to our Fahrenheit to Celsius, it's the same thing. Okay, if you can, on monochord, you can convert the whole world of quality into quantity, then the world of quantity is the way we see it. If it's that scientific, if you are going to say this is the whole scientific thing, then quality must be the same. So maybe we didn't consider it that way. We think, how can I, as a designer or decorator, feng shui consultant, be regarded like a nuclear scientist? You're using the same scales. Convert this to that and this to that. You see? So, this is the world of quality. The world of quality is just as precise and just as scientific as quantity, because they are just two faces of one coin. You can't separate them, whatever people say. It's just because we haven't come to the notion of using the other aspect of the string. That's the qualitative aspect of the string. And a string, when we use pendulum instruments, the pendulum, the way we use it here in this kind of physics, is just a musical string. It's a musical string, and I can't see on a musical string the resonance with my eyes very well, so I cut it in the middle and put a weight. And when I cut it and put a weight, when it starts resonating, it will move. The length of the string, you see, it's here's the monochord, here, stand maybe this way. This is a piece of wood like this, and here nail, and then another nail, and then I have here the chord. You see, and I have the different lengths here. Now, we know, for example, that a note here on that string, not only will it give a sound, but if a sound is played, a similar note, and I put my finger here, then the string will vibrate. It's like musical instruments interact with each other. So, okay, if I take here and put a ball, why am I putting a ball? Because the definition of a string, a musical string or a chord, is that it should be stretched. It can't be loose, it should be stretched. So how do I stretch it? I put a weight here. Now, any note here, it's the same, it's having exactly the same thing. Or imagine the string here, I detach this and put a weight here. It's the same, it's still a monochord. See, so a pendulum is a monochord. Fixed here, tight here. Now, when resonance happens, this will turn either clockwise or anti-clockwise. And what will happen here when this turns, it will mean that while here, let's say I put my finger anywhere on the monochord, the wavelength that comes out is equal to the free length, okay? Here, the wavelength, when this turns, this will be half the wavelength, okay? Because it's turning that way. So imagine it's half what the string is. So when you put a ball, instead of here, it's like you get the same sound, but only just moved another octave. And the length here, this is the amplitude. So we have here in the monochord, we have a physical instrument that measures wavelengths, that has mathematics, sound. See? So here we enter into very important science that we are going to start with after lunch when you're relaxed and sleepy. And that's the wonderful science of harmonics. But not harmonics from the musical sense, harmonics from the total sense.
We were speaking about a physics of quality and the physics of quantity. Here we want to introduce the physics of quality, and we have seen that the monochord is a sort of a convergent thing between quantity and quality, and the monochord, actually a pendular instrument, is half the monochord. When we spoke, for example, about this transformation, when Pythagoras spoke about the music of the spheres, for example, just a word, when he says it, we should keep thinking. Just the word music of the spheres has in it, it includes everything about astrology and astronomy are included in this sentence. So, because you know how we are speaking here about when the celestial bodies move, the geometrical angles between them influence the energy, all the energy patterns. And what we feel is not the angles. See, what we feel is the quality of the energy in the sky at that moment. So the movement is making a sort of a qualitative effect. That means, in other words, what is an expression of quality is music. So you can say the music of the spheres, it explains in just one sentence, it explains this, what astrology is explained in this sentence. You know, here in America, you like to say the 1 minute manager, the 1 minute thing, and all that. So Pythagoras is here is the 10 seconds astrology, music of the spheres. Now, this quantity versus quality, when we spoke about harmonics, I want to know exactly the difference first. How can we shift our awareness from quantity to quality? Because really it's a very simple shift of awareness. It doesn't take much more than that. I'll make an example of what a quantitative measurement is. Let's say you have something like this, and something would be moving at different speeds like that. This is just any diagram to show something going from small to big. Now, in a quantitative way, I can perceive here what my instruments can measure. So I can go in that direction, and the more sensitive my instruments become to smaller things, I can set a perception here. Then I invent new instruments and I move it a bit that way. And then in this direction, I go to the bigger things. So it is, because quantitative means what? Means the ability to measure. So it's the ability of my instruments of measurements. So you see, there is a limit. And this limits quantitatively. This is what sort of makes the artificial separation between physical and sort of non-physical, or physical and metaphysical, or whatever. All what's outside there, as long as we can't measure it. Because we think today that what we can measure is scientific. But this is completely wrong, because science is not measurement. Measurement is just a tool in the hand of science. Scientific is a certain way of looking at things. Science is a way of understanding something. For example, when you see a phenomena, something happens, and you see that if I do these 3 steps in this specific way, produces that phenomena. And if I repeat it 10 times and produces the same phenomena, this is scientific thinking. It's that simple. I don't have to measure. I don't have to measure at all. Because what I do could be measurable or could not be measurable. See? So if every time I lift this leg up like that, I'm out of balance, and I do it 10 times, I'm out of balance, then having 2 legs is related to balance or something like that. You see, if I move it's very simple. Just observe something 3-4 times, and this is scientific. So scientific is our way of observation. That's how all science started. Observation of certain phenomena, and then the details or the steps that lead to that phenomena. Then we have scientific method. Whether we measure it or not is beside the question. But now we somehow forgot all the simple things. Now we tell everybody, if I can't measure it, it doesn't exist. Now, if you say, I'm sad, I can't measure it, it's not scientific. It doesn't exist for me. That's you, as if that is your way of, a subjective way of feeling something, but it's completely irrelevant or non-existent for me, because I can't measure it. But there is something very strange here. In science, normal science, we say everything, what we can measure and what we cannot, everything in the universe is energy. That means nothing can be, nothing within time and space can be not energy. And then I come and say, okay, are your feelings of sadness now, is that a form of energy? Oh, no, forget, I mean, we're speaking about electricity, heat, things, conversion like that. How come? I mean, didn't we just define energy? Didn't we say everything is energy? Doesn't the dictionary, if you take any encyclopedia or dictionary and see definition of energy, it says the ability to produce an effect. It depends on the language. Could be either the ability to produce an action, ability to produce an effect. It's the ability, not actual producing it. We always think of energy as something already producing an effect. Like when, because our mind goes to Einstein, E mc squared, something moving. Not necessary. You see, it's the ability. Because the fuel in your car has energy. How also when the car is there, it doesn't have to move. It still has energy. So it's the ability. Now, when she says I'm sad, that means that there is something happening to the emotional energy there. Now you tell me, if you tell me emotions are not a form of energy, then how come? Because since everything in the universe is energy, then nothing can be not energy, you see. But if her emotions are energy, then I can actually convert it. I can store it. I can amplify it. See? You tell me, oh no, this is too absurd. Well, it's either energy or it's not energy. If it is that way, then we should be able really to go into it, and from a scientific point of view, it should be treated like any other energy, converted to any other energy. I mean, you might feel, if you're very angry, you might feel some heat in your body. This conversion of a feeling to heat. I mean, it's very simple. But somehow, all things that produce an effect that are of subjective nature, we tend to discard them out of the form, but you can't. It is part of it. Now, we said this is limited, so quantitative, is, first of all, limited by our instruments. It's always a range, from to, always. And then there's another thing. When you go the speed here or the size here, if we are saying it's increasing, then what you find here is different than what was before it and different than what's coming. So there's no repetition here. You see, it's just 5 is different than 6, it's different than 7, different than 8, different than 9. There's no repetition. Now, let's take if we look at it in a qualitative way. If these were the strings of an instrument, strings like that, then you could say, okay, the length of the string here, the mathematical length of every string is different than the other. There's no repetition here. But let's look at it in another way. Before I looked at it in another way, I'll tell you a small joke to wake you up after lunch, you know. Somebody was there at night, it was very dark, and he went under the light and he's looking for something in the ground. Then another person comes and says, what are you looking for? Can I help you? He says, I'm looking for a key. I lost my key. He says, where exactly did you lose it? He says, well, over there. Then he says, well, why are you looking here? He says, because over there is dark and here is light. Okay, logically, it sounds absurd, okay? But this is, when you understand this type of joke, this is a Sufi joke. That means it's a joke that illustrates a mystical concept. So what could be behind it? Now, if I had a musical instrument like that, let's say piano with the different chords, and I have anything, let's say some dust or something on a chord here, or a coin on a chord here, but I have only a small part here that's uncovered, and all this part is covered. I don't see it. Can I, if it's a musical instrument, connect with this chord through the part that's visible? One of the 7 will be in connection with it. So, because octaves, they move every note, every 7th, there's a sort of repetition. So all I have to do is hit one of the 7 chords, try each one, and then one of them will make the coin fall. So I don't have to go there, I can still interact with it. So quality means repetition of a certain quality. You see, when we say scale of qualities, it will not be a scale where things start from, let's say, 0 or something and increase. No, it's a kind of scale. Qualitative scales is a quality that keeps repeating itself. And because in a musical instrument, you know, when they name the notes do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, si, or C, D, G, when they name them, and then after 7 notes they started again, it isn't because somebody was naming them and he ran out of letters, so he decided to start again, you know. Then you say, okay, why didn't he number them from 1 to 100? It would be easier. Today in a computer world, it's easier to number them. But physics tells us very simple. Just hit one chord, and every 8th string is going to enter into resonance with it. Now, it sounds different. It's not the same sound. But when you somehow it's in resonance with it. So it must be similar in a way. Now for a normal person, it's a different note, it's a different sound, and somehow in a relationship. Now for somebody who starts playing music for a year or something like that, he's been playing it, so somehow his emotions are interacting with the notes. See, he gains certain sensitivity. Now you hit any note, this do or this do and this do, and he tell you, oh, this is a do, this is a do, this is a do. To him they're the same now because you feel them the same. So here there is a repetitive thing. This is very important because repetitive, that means it will keep going, this relationship, and this relationship is very important. This is resonance. Now remember this word well, because this is, from now on, it's going to be your middle name, okay? Everyone will have resonance as his middle name. This is very, very important. Because resonance is communication, is being. You'll see how wonderful word of resonance is. Now, when resonance happens, this communication here, it is not limited by anything. You see, even if your musical instrument is limited, this will go, resonance will go here to infinity, to the smallest, and to infinity to the biggest, you see? So actually what happens when you make any action, hit any note here, the one you hear, the audible sound, is limited to a certain audible range. But the resonance effect is unlimited from the minutest to the largest. So the whole universe is constantly in tune. That's harmonics. If you play just, if I start doing this, see? Doing this, just doing anything like that, then you think this is not heard outside this room. Now, the whole universe will somehow enter into resonance with this pulse, all things that are similar to this. And this will explain something very important to you. You think that when you, all repetitive things like meditation, when you do repetitive things, or in India they have forms of meditation, we have forms of meditation, we use rosaries like that in our hand, or sometimes count on the fingers like this, but all over the world we have a type of meditation that has to be with rhythm. Even African drums or things like that. Anything that has to do with rhythm is a form of meditation. Now, the first thing we understand that meditation is a way when you introduce a rhythm to the mind, like that, it will slow the mind, somehow stop it from wandering and produce this silence. So it's a way of stilling. In reality, it's not a way of stilling. In reality, by making a rhythm, you start communication. You see? So any rhythm, the moment a rhythm means you're connecting to the beginning, to the universe, from the largest to the smallest. So actually, meditation is all about connection with the whole universe. You're in tune with the whole universe. It's this tuning with the whole universe that, if done well, really overwhelms your individuality into the sort of omnipresence feeling. It is because in you, the universe has manifested inside you all of a sudden. So you become that small. So you become omnipresent. It's not that your mind has stopped. It's not a way of stealing the mind. It's a way of calling in. It's a way of being the universe. And from the quantitative point of view, you see, because if we say we are like an iceberg, where so much is visible and so much is invisible. So if the 9/10 that is invisible is in tune with the universe, it becomes a copy of the universe. So actually, if 9/10 of me is the universe and the physical body is only 1/10, then I am the universe and not the physical body, you see. I only own now 10% of the shares. The rest belong to the universe. So this is, harmonics was considered one of the most secret sciences. Not looking at it from the musical point of view, but looking at it from other point of views of how you can harness the powers of nature through harmonics. And this is the basics of qualitative measurement. Now, what happens when we speak about resonance now? Look at the chords or the strings. If you hit one, during resonance, they're all moving together like this. Now, I'm simplifying it, of course, and taking only 8th chord. Those who study music, you know that you have secondary and tertiary effects in there. You have a secondary effect that goes to 16 notes with it and all that give the quality of the sound itself and the sound box. But we're simplifying. We're taking the main one for simplicity. Now, that means here, when two things are in resonance, we look at it that way. Sometimes we can draw it that way. We draw, let's say, a wave, and then we draw another one like this. And we say when they're in resonance, there's a very simple way. You know, we superimpose the points of one onto the other like that, and we superimpose them and somehow come with a resultant. And during resonance, both will behave according to the resultant. What does that mean? If this one was like this, now it behaves like this. If this one was like this, it behaves like this. Any change is information. So what's happening? Resonance means information exchange. So all the information of this one is into this one. So you see, now any rhythm produces information exchange with the whole universe. All we need to now is be able to tune into whatever we want. But in general, it is there. So, see, the science, physics of quality is so wonderful that if you really start living it or using it, it will become much, much more exciting than all what we have discovered or done today in our physics of quantity in the modern technology. Because we can do so much more with this one. Now, this repetitive thing also has another thing related to our being, our psychology. When you work quantitatively, things are changing in such a way that what is finished, will not come back. You see, the 6, I'm in the 6, the 5 is finished, and I'm in the 6, and the next one is the 7, so it's not the 6 anymore. So if I'm standing at the 6, I have lost the 5. I have a feeling of loss for the 5 because it's not, I was in it, but now it's gone. And what's coming is not a 6 or a 5. It's a new thing. It's a 7, and I don't know how it will feel. So you see, quantitative perception of time carries in it stress, carries in it some fear of what is being lost, and some fear of the unknown. It's normal. Like in your birthday, you come in your birthday, you count the years, you say, I'm growing old, and all that. But if you're really concentrating not on your age, but on the presents you get in your birthday, then you know that every year, the birthday, oh, the party, I see my friends, I'm getting the present. Now you know that last year you had it, so it must be here this year, and it will be there next year. You never lose it. So it depends how you look at it. Now let's see another way of doing that. Now a farmer, he will automatically have a different perception of time. A farmer will not look at this year is 202 and next year is 203. He will not say this year I'm 22 and next year I'm 23. No, he will look at it differently. He will look at it as this is winter. Okay, it was there before and it's going to be there again. Now this is spring. Nothing is being lost, you see, and what's coming is known because he knows this spring is like last spring, see, and he's not losing it. And I'm not losing it, it's just being transforming. I'm getting, instead of saying now spring is going into summer, I'm not losing spring because spring is coming again. So in this, there's no feeling of loss. There's a feeling of, when you look at qualities, it is somehow, you get like an eternal present where you're not afraid of losing anything. You get an overview, because the moment you say the quality of spring, now it's here, you know that summer's coming, you know that winter's past. So you get this overview. This overview gives you, when you feel an eternal presence of things, nothing will be lost. It's just cyclic, it's coming. You feel a certain relaxation inside you. There's no fear. Instead of fear, there is a wisdom. Wisdom comes out because when something keeps repeating itself so many times, you start noticing things. Now, when you start noticing things, you develop a wisdom, a natural wisdom in life. And this way of looking at things, you see, it's the same human being. When he's working in agriculture, he is living in this time. When he's working out in a sort of a man-made thing, all of a sudden he's using quantitative time and he's into stress and he's into fear and he's into all things. So it doesn't take much. All it takes is changing your perception. Now, your left brain perception will always give you the quantitative. Your right brain perception will always give you the qualitative. So it's a way of moving into qualities of things. Qualities never go away. They're repeatable. They're connected to the whole universe. Now, qualities, communication in qualitative physics is different than communication in quantitative. In communication, if you want to communicate, in quantitative manners, it's totally different than in qualitative. In quantitative, there is me and you, and something moves from here to there and from here to there. This is quantitative communication. Either I send you a radio wave or something has to go, something has to come. I send, and even when we speak about healing, when we speak about energy, because we are trained quantitatively, we think I'm sending healing energy, I'm receiving. It doesn't work that way at all. You can't explain quantitative and qualitative. Okay, you say yes, but I feel I have lost that amount of energy and the other person has gained that amount of energy. Okay, yes, it's true. But you shouldn't think that something moved between you and the person. Maybe there's another way. Maybe there's resonance. It's a totally different way of communicating. So we'll stop for a minute. So we're speaking about communication in quantitative. There is two persons or two destinations of communication, one to the other. They're separate, see. Now, in resonance, we said when communication occurs, something strange happens. First, they both become the same. So here, communication is not communication between two persons. It's a oneness. Each one becomes the other. It's a oneness. So actually, when you communicate with nature, there's oneness.
And we are going to go very deep into that. All those points are very important because the whole system of quantity and quality is differentiated by those things. In quality, when you communicate, you both become each other. So each one is the sum of both. This is the way of communication. So communication, in quantity, communication is giving and receiving. In quality, communication is becoming. You don't communicate with something, you become that thing. Energy-wise, you see, they both become that. So and in this state where they both are the same, they have both changed a bit so that each is the sum of both. It's there. So it's a very it's a very simple concept. To us now, we have to study it. It's very exciting. But look at it in a different point of view. There's a nice book. It's called The Gnostic Jung. I don't know the publisher, but it's called The Gnostic Jung, and it shows how Carl Gustav Jung. This is very good because I lived in Zurich a long time, studied there and all that. So Jung was there along the road when I was at university. That tells you how old I am or how young I am. But you know, in quality, it doesn't really matter. Yeah. So.
That's how wise you are.
No, because it's just all there. It never went away. So you feel Jung, that's Zurich where I was, and then Gnostic, this is the Gnosticism, it's the path of knowledge that started in Egypt about 300 years before Christianity, and it somehow was the ground that
received Christianity in Egypt. So when Jesus was a child and he came with Mary and they came to Egypt, they escaped the Roman persecution and came to a place where people were, the Gnostics were there with a kind of a religion that wasn't exactly like the Jewish religion. It was a religion based on knowledge. It was a remnants, what was left of the ancient Egyptian sciences. But why do we say the Gnostics? Because they had lost the sciences themselves of the temple. They didn't have them anymore. But they had the way of thinking. So it was, let's say, the way of knowledge. But the sciences itself on which that knowledge was based was already in the past. Why was it already in the past? I mean, why did it go away? Now, let's look at what Jung said. Jung made a sort of differentiated development in consciousness according to the right and left brain consciousness and according to waking consciousness and subconscious and all that. And he made sort of 4 types of humanity. He said we have, in the beginning, we have primitive man. Primitive man is mainly a right brain type consciousness. Doesn't mean that the left part of the head was empty. I mean that they had half a brain and the rest was air. No, it just means that this one was very dominant. The other was still there when you wanted to hold something, to lift something, the other one was still there. But the focus of consciousness from where everything was perceived was in the right brain. What's the difference between right brain consciousness and left brain consciousness? The right brain consciousness is a sort of, it is beyond the senses. It's expansive. It's receptive. It's the sort of perception that has to do with overall things. You perceive patterns. You perceive overall things. It has no, let's say, it doesn't go into details. It goes into the relationship between things. So the invisible between the objects becomes as important as the objects themselves because it forms the pattern. In a right brain consciousness, for example, you would understand that in any molecule like this, a molecule, a chemical molecule at school, we draw something like this and something like this, some atoms like that, and they're related to each other. Now you could have the same type of atoms, let's say carbon and oxygen, into different configurations like this, and they would give you, although they're the same in type, the element could be here just carbon and oxygen, here just carbon and oxygen. Just a difference in number and a different in geometrical pattern would give you a different substance. So the qualities of substances here are not depending on the qualities of the constituents only. They depend on the pattern, overall pattern of arrangement and number. Pattern was numbers part of pattern. So the pattern itself is the thing that shows its quality. Because really, in a molecule or in an atom, the components here are negligible. They're less than 0.1% of the whole, so they really don't play such a role. But it's how they're arranged. So patterns here, the qualities of life, if we want to understand them, we go into this instead of looking with the left brain conscious at the components. This is this element and this element and this is that. We go out and look at the shape. It is this shape or it is that shape or it is that shape. That's right brain conscious and how does this shape affect me? You see, now if you would go to somebody who's a chemist who's doing, and then you look at the molecules and judge them by shape, by how you feel what this shape tells you. They'll think you're crazy. But in reality, you could draw this on your hand, the shape of a molecule, or look at it in a book, and we can measure what happens to your energy field. So this will show you that although it's just drawn on paper, it will show you this effect of the right brain. Now, this is what makes this holistic way of looking at things. Now, when you look holistically at things, like I said, the left brain is still working because the senses mainly, when they limit things, they analyze things and all that, it's mainly left brain perception. So it's still working for your senses. This side works when you daydream. So this holistic way of looking at things, first of all, it's relaxing. The left brain has to focus and analyze. So for our senses to create our left brain perception like that all day, there's a certain amount of stress. And we're like a projector. We could get hot at the end of the day and have to sleep because we get tired, you see. So this right brain perception, since it's holistic, it gives me a sense of unity with what's around me. So here I have the perception of we. You see, we. And here it starts to analyze. That means if you want to analyze something, you have to separate it from its surroundings. And this is when you start making this and the rest. And then ultimately, I and you. See, but the caveman, the primitive man, didn't have this I. You see, he had the we. So there was all actions. You would find a pattern produced by the whole community. Like when you see birds flying, when you see things like that, the community somehow, it's as if one mind is governing them. They produce the same patterns and they move. And there's the sense of I here is very weak, and the sense of we is the most important thing. And this way of looking at nature makes you, when you perceive things with a sense of we, that means this we is also not your herd only, but it's the whole nature. So you're in tune with all the forces of nature. It's automatic. You move according to the electromagnetic fields, you move according to the seasons, you move everything. When you build, a bird comes to build a nest or something, it will build a nest here the way another similar bird will build it in the other side of the world. Why? Because the bird wants to create a certain energy quality, and that is coming from where to it? It cannot analyze. It is the laws of the universe, the natural laws, that manifest through its brain and produce the most suitable material and form of nest for this species. And that way, if it's the same bird, it's the same laws of nature. So they always produce the same things that are best for the species. So you see, when you're here, it's being, you're one with nature. It's nature speaking through you. Now, this is what Jung terms primitive man. Now comes another step where he calls, this is ancient man. Ancient man is when a slow shift starts going from the right side to the left side, and a personality starts emerging. Now, but the communication is still open. So consciousness in ancient man is placed equally between both parts now. In primitive man, it was more on the right side. In ancient man, they're both the same. Now, both the same means that the left brain consciousness now has to start expressing itself also. Now, what are its two numbers? You see, all things, certain numbers, certain motions, certain things, whether it's music, whether it's number, whether all what they do from the left percept colors, sounds, and all that. So at that time with ancient man, you have music, you have mathematics, you have all those things started, you have building started. Before that, they used to live in nature, but now humanity is building temples, building things like that. But is that the left brain consciousness? No. To them, there's a very big difference when you have a consciousness that's equally present in right and left, and it uses a number, and the consciousness that's only present in the left, like modern man, and it uses a number. To us, a number is a quantity. To that man who is both, when he puts a 2 or a 3, any number, he sees the link to nature. He sees the quality of number. And that's why when you go into to read the ancient scriptures and all that, many ancient things, there are many numbers that are there. And sometimes you want to take them literally from their quantitative effect. And then come the scientists and tell you, no, all those books now are not right, because, I mean, how can they say, for example, that from Adam to now it's 6,000 years, and now we know the humans, and it's not like that at all. It has nothing to do with all that. It has to do with the people writing in that time were doing it differently. Let's say I have a plate here in front of me, and this plate is full of, let's say, apples. A big plate full of apples. And I want to convey to you the qualities of the apples. So I would say, for example, now, when I stood there and I distributed my 3 apples, you see, they felt this and this and this. Now, and then later on, I would say, Yes, but again, when I was giving them my 7 apples, this and this happened. So somebody will come look. Now here there's a discrepancy. Because here they state that the apples were 3. In this context, when they say, for example, when he went there and he went to the people and he brought a present, 3 apples. Now in this other text, it says he went and gave a present of 7 apples. You see, there's something wrong. Who is right and who's wrong? Now in reality, my plate, somebody discovers that the plate actually had 50 apples. So all of a sudden, this whole thing, that's not like that. When I want to give you a certain quality of the apples, that is reflected in the number 3. So I tell you, when I give you my 3 apples, from the word 3, you understand all about the energy pattern of the apple related to the energy concepts behind the number 3, from a qualitative point of view. So you see? So I use the numbers here to convey. So I have my apples, I can split them in 3s, split them in 7s, split them in every time I split them in different numbers to convey a different concept. Now, if the door closes to the right thing, and we come today and we look at it with a scientific mind, and we come and say all these things are not accurate, or they're nonsense, or not historical, or not, because we don't understand this quality. So when an ancient Egyptian, let's say an ancient man, would write a number, he knew that with this number he was entering into resonance with the whole universe. He was moving it. And I will show you this very explicitly, but if I demonstrate it now, it would be too early. But I'll show you later on how you can find the quality, for example, of any number. One of the ways is very easy. If somebody has a problem, let's say, in any part of his body, and I can diagnose it whichever way you use. I might use a pendulum, somebody might use a biofeedback device, or whatever you do. Then I would tell you, okay, let the person hold his hand out like this. And then I start putting something on his hand, but first something that I know is bad for the body to begin with. I could get white refined sugar or something like that, that I know, to take off the healing aspect out. So I put 1 bag, and then I put 2, then I put 3, and I keep looking. Somewhere, by the time, most of the times by the time you reach 10, sometimes if you don't find it there, then go to 20, but most of the time it will be somewhere between 1 and 10. You reach, and at a certain number, the problem will disappear. Even the problem could be, let's say something, you could have a strong backache or something that's really troubling you. The moment you put the right number, it will start going away. You put 1 more and it come back. See, this is a very, very easy way to, now you can't say the sugar did it, because we know the sugar doesn't do it. It's the quality of number. See, so when you look at numbers that way, then you must imagine that there were people living on this earth that related everything in the left brain perception, the quantitative world, to the effect with the whole universe. See, and this is very important. When, for example, they came and they drew a lotus. They drew a lotus flower. Now people tell you the Egyptians had no creativity whatsoever, because they kept drawing the same lotus flower in the same proportions and the same colors for 3,000 years. And this creativity comes, you find people saying, yes, because they had their fixed seasons, you know, the flood every year and all that, so they were used to certain rhythms and certain things, so there was no need to be creative. Now, I mean, when I look when I look and see that famous names and professors are saying such nonsense, I mean, the people who had all this civilization, who could build those temples and all those things, couldn't draw 2 different lotuses over. I mean, didn't anybody ever make a mistake? I would say that drawing the same lotus, the same proportion, the same colors for 3,000 years is such a huge feat, you see, because you can't draw a flower now and in 2 minutes draw this another one that comes out exactly the same. But what happened? They draw a lotus. All of a sudden, they see that the lotus they are drawing starts being in resonance with the drawing itself, because there's a resonance here of shape. Now they see the resonance. Okay. But this drawing will not necessarily be in resonance with another lotus, because it's very natural in drawing going to this lotus. Now, if I could find one drawing, one pattern that would enter into resonance with every lotus, it would be like the template or the laws that are behind the energy concept of every lotus that's coming out. Then it interacts with this environment and it changes, so one becomes different. But the basic pattern is one. That means that would take me from what we call the physical world to what we call the archetypal dimension. Archetypal dimension is where all the laws of creation on which the physical dimension manifests are found. So if a civilization builds its connection and lives on the laws of the archetypal dimension, what happens? First of all, it is not affected by time and space as we know with the quantitative one. It has another qualitative time and space concept. And then you find that's the reason why the Egyptian civilization stayed for thousands of years, and not only 3 or 4, it was probably there. You know, they're fighting every day how old it is. It could be 10,000, 20,000, whatever it is. But after the Egyptian civilization, a pattern emerged. Every civilization was 300-400 years, 300-400 years, and so on, and it keeps shifting. And this is the normal pattern that's here, that what we have today. Every civilization has a certain life cycle between 300 and 400. How come somebody can go up there in center of excellence and stay there? And how come, if they stayed there, how come one day it was lost? Now people tell you, oh, it was lost because at a certain period, I don't know, this Persians attacked Egypt, or then those attacked Egypt and something. Okay, but Egypt was, for 10,000 years, it must have been attacked hundreds of times, and it must have been attacking others for hundreds of times. And there's no reason to find if somebody attacks you that you crumble away. So there must have been another reason there. But let's look at it that way. We have 2 rooms here, the right brain room and the left brain room. Now, in ancient Egypt, I have both rooms there and the door is open between them. So whenever I do something in this room, it's in relationship with what's in this room. You see? And this is very important. So I'm living this. In ancient Egypt then, when I draw the archetypes of the lotus, when I look at the archetype, I become the lotus. So communication, symbols, hieroglyphics in ancient Egypt were not the way you find in books today. You find in books today this a symbol, a hieroglyph, conveys an idea. That's a modern way of looking at things. No, a symbol in ancient Egypt was a way of becoming something else. So communication, you became what you wanted to communicate with. And that's why when they invoked this nature power, they said they were not gods, they were called netters. And the word netter is the root of the word nature. So they were the nature powers. And they used to invoke, Osiris invoked. How come the magicians invoke the gods? This is a modern concept. No? When you make any rhythm, you become the universe, and you are the nature powers, and they are you. So it's a completely different way. You become things. Then something happened, and this I call the great shift. We'll stop 5 minutes, and then I'll tell you what the great shift is. Now, we were speaking about the levels of consciousness. Now, William James, you all know the philosopher William James of last century, he said once that the shift from ancient man to modern man, from right brain consciousness to left brain consciousness, occurred at about 1250 BC. But I wouldn't, again, use quantitative. This is very dangerous because, for example, if I tell you that when the caveman erected a stone, a man here, this is the origin that later developed into an obelisk or something like that. But obelisks were built thousands of years before the cavemen in Europe even erected menhirs. They were, so maybe in Egypt, 20,000 years earlier, they were just erecting stones like what we find lately in Europe. Sometime they must have done it very early. So here we can't say dates. This evolution happened at that date. But probably the evolution, for example, from primitive man to ancient man happened in Egypt maybe 20,000 years ago. But in the caveman in Europe, it could have happened only 4,000 years ago. So when you read, we're speaking here about equality and not from the quantitative sense. Now, what is the next step? I won't spend too much time in ancient Egypt, because it's very interesting when we speak about mummification, when we speak about all those things of how the Egyptians had all those levels, all the entities within us and all the levels. It's very interesting. In the tapes here, in the beginning, I used to put examples, lots of examples. I would speak about the Templars, as the Crusade, about the churches in Europe, about the ancient Egyptians, about so many things, just to show things. But not everybody was linked or found resonance with all the examples. So now we simplify them a bit. If you like all the stories and all that, you'll find them in the tape. And we did in Holland once a 2 or 3 day lecture just on the topic of Pythagoras and ancient Egypt, explaining everything in ancient Egypt, how it really was. And it's always, I speak about my ancient Egypt. I don't want to get in conflict with the left-brained Egyptologists. So I speak about my ancient Egypt, the way I live it. So, and they, one of the participants there made the transcript, and he's making a book out of it about Pythagoras and ancient Egypt. So he sent it to me to revise it. I'm just looking at it, and I'll put a 1-page introduction, and it should be ready very, very soon about this aspect of ancient Egypt. Or maybe sometime next year or something, we might make a special seminar about going into those temple sciences, because they're very interesting, especially for those mystically minded. It's very interesting. Now, what is in, when we speak about the great shift, usually we mean the polar shift. We mean when you had the North Pole and then it moved, and you find that there are many buildings that if you find some foundations of ancient monuments that have alignments with the difference to the pole, then you can know that these were there before the polar shift. They're remnants of building before. So the polar shift is a very important thing when people are looking from the physical point of view at things. But to me, the great shift is not the polar shift. To me, the great shift is more important. It's the shift in consciousness, the shift in perception. It's the day the door closed between both rooms. You see? The day the door closed. Now number 2 means 2. Doesn't mean more than 2. 3 means 3. You see, it's just quantitative now. Letters are letters. Sounds are sounds. But in that room, every letter is supposed to be sort of like a sample or something that links to a power of the universe. So when I write something, I'm moving the powers of the universe with me. Now that has been lost because now we take the practical aspect of things. So this closing of the door, this is, to me, the great shift in perception. Now the door is closed. You don't have the link to the powers of the universe. You can't use them anymore, because how did you use them? You didn't sort of connect or with the powers to use them. You became them. You see, you could be anything in the universe and act accordingly. Now the door is closed, and what in that time was, there was no separation when you still had the right brain consciousness. There was no separation between science, religion, this and that, all aspects of life. When we speak today about ancient Egyptian sciences, ancient Egyptian religion, it's nonsense. It was a whole thing, a way of life. Religion means belief. Now, you believe in something when you don't see it. But when you see it and you're in it. I mean, why tell you about belief? Because it's in front of you, you see it, you're using it. So then it becomes a practical way of life in harmony with the universe. There's nothing called believing, because you touch it, it's there. Now when the door closed, a new era emerged now. Some people would get the messages from the other side, from the other room, or they have been into the other room, and they tell us what is behind that closed door. You see, so we enter in an area now, or in a time. The great shift is a shift where we have to believe in something that we don't see. And this is a huge shift, because now we believe. And when the door is closed and somebody's telling me that you have to believe that this is behind that door, everybody, although what's inside the door is the same, but if 5 people open the door and look and come out and tell us what they see in there, each one will tell it in a different way. They actually mean the same thing, what's behind the door. But somehow we take the differences. You know, Ibrahim is an Egyptian, he's a Muslim, he told me what's behind the door, he said that. No, but Madhu said different, you know. And this one's a Christian, said different. This one's a Jew, he said different. Now who's right? I mean, it's something is wrong up there. Instead of looking at what's behind the door, and that's this believe means look behind the door, we take believe as a way, as if believe in my story here, and forget about the door completely. That is what modern man is. Modern man, the way Jung describes it, is this shutting of the door. He describes it differently. He doesn't say a room and the door and all that. Maybe I'm an architect, I speak in rooms and doors. But he says this is a denial of the right brain consciousness. And this, it's not something arises out of anything, it's just normal. Once you shift too much, now the shift goes completely into the left brain, the sense of I becomes very strong. You see, in the ancient Egyptian, the ego was there as a spokesman of the universe still, acting in this life, inventing new sciences and everything, but always in context of what's there. Now, all of a sudden, the ego has become very strong, and I develop a personality, modern man. When I develop a personality, the first thing that it shows me, it differentiates between me and you. And as we develop, now our modern side is developing, the shift is getting more accentuated every day, and you feel that between generations already. Maybe the older ones among us, they would still feel when there was a day when you felt the I and we felt the family as a we. You felt your neighborhood, you felt your city, even your country. You had something to do with your country. There was this balance between me and all those we aspects. But now it's moving. You see your children and your grandchildren, and things are moving in such a way that there's only I. Nothing else is there, you see. This is the most important thing in life. And it tends to make such a strong separation that the we is not there anymore, you see. And we might say, no, this is what's happening, this is the American way of life, but maybe when you go back, you tell me in India we don't have it, or in Egypt we still don't have it. I know we don't have it in India and in Egypt, but it will come. It has to come. And it's not coming because we are going to be influenced by the American way of life. It has nothing to do with that. It has to come because the consciousness, the more you learn specialized things, the more you use a calculator, the more you train your specialized thing, the more you pull your perception into the left brain. You can look at a child when he sits in a computer game. I mean, I have driven, for example, sports cars all my life. I like sports cars. I drive very fast and all that. And then when I come and get a racing game on the screen, on a PC or something, I sit with my daughter, and I'm sitting there, and she tells me, look, Daddy, show me how you can drive. And she goes like this, you know, and I'm crashing everywhere on the screen. Because their mind is already working differently than ours. You notice that very much in little things. And then you notice if I move at her pace, the game is not fun anymore. I'm starting to get stressed. But you find them going at very, very quick paces and doing things like that and very happy about it and something like that. And they can speak to you and then go back and all that. And it's already, you notice, if you look at this, you notice already a shift more into the left brain perception. Now this shift makes you the I, then it makes you want things for yourself. The we, you want our prosperity. You see? You speak, you read in management, we have to speak, teach people something as if it's something new that we invented, a win-win situation, or integrity towards others, or things like that. I mean, it isn't nothing new, but it doesn't exist. When the I is there, finished, the others are out. Now you have to teach the I a win-win situation. You can teach it, but I mean, it's still the big win here and the small win there. It will never be a win-win, you see, because we're changing complete. So this is this left brain that makes a very strong I. Then Jung spoke about an emerging minority, and he called that contemporary man. Contemporary man is somebody now who, although he feels that the I became so strong that it is even denying the subconscious as another entity. I mean, it's not accepting even a subconscious. So now the contemporary man is somebody who starts to look inside. That means he opens the door. He wants to see what's inside that room. I'm not going to listen to belief systems. If you have a belief system that you're, instead of telling me to believe, take my hand and open the door for me and let me see. You see? So open my eyes and let me see. Don't keep telling me. I don't need an intermediate. And this form of humanity. And you here are such an example. You wouldn't be here in first place discussing qualitative if you didn't feel this unity with something bigger, and if you weren't feeling the feeling that we come here, Ibrahim, because we want you to take us there. We don't want you to tell us about it. Tell us about it, this is finished. We don't accept people telling us about things. We want to go in there with you. Now this is contemporary man. He's trying to look in there. I had one from my part, another type of man, and that's future, the future of mankind. The future of mankind is, after you've seen what's there, you play an active role, a wisdom role in rebalancing both aspects, rebalancing all the imbalance that has been caused. Then this future man is an active person, not in this room, but he's active in both rooms, not just wanting to look in there.
So you go back.
On a much higher level, because you are, now how do I, it's not I go back in there, I have now modern technology. Now modern technology is so complex but so advanced. Now imagine if I take the world of modern technology and actually link it to the laws of the universe instead of fighting against it. This is what you're here for, to do that. And we want the designer to have a tool in his hand that I can actually design balance into modern technology. I can make modern technology human friendly again by linking it to the other side. So this future man, what we're building here, is somebody who wants to change the world, actually. Change the world of modern technology, not fight against it. You can't fight against it. I mean, you tell me, okay, would you sacrifice your computer and your cellular phone and all that? How? Even if you see, if you go to the Mormons and say, okay, we respect them very much because at least they have certain beliefs and they stick to them. Okay, very good. We won't have cars, won't have electricity, won't have that, won't have television. We stick to a natural way of life. What they don't know is that the information age, that the waves are just penetrating them as much as they're penetrating us. You see, if I have my mobile phone and I'm speaking on it, I'm receiving one call. You say, oh, this is unhealthy, I don't even use a phone. Okay, but both of us have 1 million calls going through our bodies at this moment. Because it's like when you can receive any one of the 1 million calls by any phone here, means that they're all here. Otherwise, you wouldn't be able to receive them. It means that they're all going through your bodies. You see? So, today, we not only have polluted our modern world, but we have polluted the whole Earth atmosphere. So, the Earth being, as a being, is becoming sick. And this is dangerous. When we go into the living energies, it's very dangerous because I have millions of bacteria here on my skin. Each one is doing a certain job towards caring of my skin. Now, if they start sleeping and playing around or doing the wrong things, I will feel maybe an itch or something. So I will do this. If I scratch, there goes 1 million. Another scratch, there goes another 2 million. I'm killing millions of them just by scratching because they're not doing their job here or they're disturbing. So the Earth slaps back. It's very easy. When you sit here, you know, and you sit somewhere and you have a huge guy sitting beside you, you know, you're very polite. you respect because, yeah, you see, you're very polite. Okay. But you are here with a huge being, which is the Earth, and you don't pay any respects. All what you do is disturb. Well, this huge being is like he feels something here because it's like that. I feel something here. I scratch here. You have a problem here. You have a problem there. Okay. The Earth slaps back very easily. But when it slaps hard. And we should know that we are not completely isolated from any huge catastrophe that could come in the Earth. It might be its way of slapping. Because if you have something on the surface of your hand that's really disturbing you. At the end, if you scratch twice, you'll go and wash your hand and get it, or put a cream and get rid of it completely, you know. So it's species like us on the Earth's surface. I mean, why not get rid of it? I mean, but its way of getting rid of it, it's the species will get rid of its own self. It's in such a way. And that's why, that's the role of future man now. Future man, we are here to change all that. Now, we are going to see what, if we are thinking of qualities and we want to measure qualities. If I am measuring with my normal quantitative measurements, hertz, frequencies, or whatever it is, they are just telling me a number, a quantitative, whether it's speed, whether it's height, whether it's something, but not much more. But let's say I use something from the qualitative scales, like when I say the word beautiful, or when I say the color red. If I use any of those subjective things, it means much more, because in a quality you cannot put a number. A qualitative scale is a scale of description of an effect. So in a musical note, in the level of the instrument, you see, in the level of the instrument here, I have, let's say, the D or the C or what I have as a note. But now I have to differentiate between two things. Or I have the color red or blue or something. I have to differentiate between two things, and that's very, very important. There's a difference between the thing itself, whether it's the color or the note, and the quality of its effect on me. So we are going to speak now, when we speak about qualitative scales, I mean not the thing itself, not the red color, but the red quality. So when I speak red quality, I don't mean the red color. I mean the effect of the red color on my energy system. You see? Now, once I take that, but I know that the effect of the red color on my energy system is repeatable. So I can use it beyond the color scale and forget the color itself. And I use the effect of the red color. So now we want to look at qualities. In order to look at qualities, I'll help you a bit with a very simple key. This is a very simple key, but the most important key you will need to know about understanding energies, because it will explain all the qualities. Designers will need it, healers will need it, everybody will need this key. And it is so simple that you will even believe how simple that is. This E is quality of energy. So let's take, if something moves this way, anything moves like that, I blow or any water moves, any motion. Now, what will happen here? When it moves that way, something will turn this way here, and this will turn that way. See? When you move in air, when you move in anything, automatically friction will make this go this way and this go this way. It's like causing this rotation here and this rotation here. So you have here, in any energy situation, this is your energy key. In any energy situation, you have situation number one. Here is where energy coming at you. You can call that an getting energy or something. This is a quality. Now, if you're standing here, this would be a different quality than this. So standing at both ends of a current, it makes a difference whether it's going away from you or whether it's coming at you. And then here, when it turns, you're making a rotation like this. This clockwise rotation like this makes an expansion of energy. It's like a vortex coming up, expansion of energy. And this one like this makes energy go down like that. Now, this would be the energy key. 1, 2, 3, 4. This will be the most important energy key that you can ever think of. Now, we will use it in a two-dimensional form on this level of our studies. On advanced levels, we can take it, you see, into, if something moves like this and this moves like this, in a three-dimensional form, it will be like a donut, you know, something like this, and you'd have something going up like this, and the energy, this is on a three-dimensional level, you would have like a sort of a donut, like that. But we will take it on that level. But you must know, in reality, it's like that. Now, I'll give you an example here. I have 4 qualities here. Now, in ancient Egypt, I always go back to Egypt, huh? I must be homesick. I've been too long traveling around. Okay. We have the Nile River that flows this way. It's going from south to north like that. We have the Nile River. We have, in any flow, this would be to its right, to the right of the flow, and this would be to the left of the flow. Now, the ancient Egyptians always built everything to do with the living on that side, because this was the site for prosperity, the site for growth, the site for everything. You see, the vortex, the positive is going up here. And everything for the dead on that side. That's when the energy goes down. So here you have energy of growth, and here the energy. It's not growth and decay, it's transformation. But you must know, something goes like this and something goes like this. Is the most important key. So now there are so many systems. How do I describe such a key? Here I used, in order to have a scale, the scale must be using descriptions. I can't use, I describe this energy quality, I describe this energy quality, describe here, you see. So a scale of quality must be descriptive. It must give a holistic idea. It's not just a measurement. It's a much bigger thing, and these are the scales of quality. I'll stop now, and when he changes the tape, I'll give you an example for this scale. Sort of a cycle. So this one, it's like in the Chinese, this would be the one cycle of growth, and this would be one cycle of destruction. But the word destructive cycle doesn't, don't want to take words from certain places. First we want to take it into very general. And then we can discuss now, apply this to the human body, apply this to Feng Shui, we can apply this, but this is very simple, and with it you can solve any energy concept that deals with quality. You just have to find, where do I place my qualities here? And I'm developing a small pendular instrument like that has actually different scales of all the qualities in it. So for example, you can measure on somebody's hand the resonance, and you would know the planetary influences, for example, in his body, each one how much it's there. And then you can have there's another scale of numbers, and you could actually know which numbers are needed for the body, or which number is in tune of, or which number is weak. And beside it, there's an emitter in which you can emit through the emitter whatever the planetary influence or the number or it's a very complex one, and we're working on it. We are putting every kind of scale, qualitative scale, into this thing. But to put it, it's so difficult, because I have to know, if you want to make a scale of numbers, okay, where does the quality of one, not the quantity of one, or the quality of two or three, where does it fit here energy-wise? So it's not that easy.
Because you're talking about developing something that goes on the physical body, right?
No, not on the physical. It doesn't measure on the physical. We don't have, in harmonics, there is no physical and no. In harmonics, whatever you measure, you cannot tell where you're measuring it. And we have developed a sort of a geometry of the planes, certain geometrical shapes that are more in tune with every plane. And with the pendulum, if you want to concentrate your research on the emotional and try to avoid the rest, you want to make your instrument more sensitive there. So you'll put a certain shape, you attach it, the shape that makes it more in tune will pull it more towards the emotional. But in reality, they're all linked together by harmonics. But the instrument we're developing on this basis, the thing that's taking a huge amount of time is every scale that we put on that instrument, you have to take this and find where does this thing, let's say, it could be herbal remedies, it could be homeopathy, it could be anything. Where does it fit exactly into this diagram? And where does it fit is not by philosophy, that you would say, I put this color here because it's color of growth, and this color, no, it doesn't go that way. We have to do analysis, measurements, and everything, because every substance radiates certain energies. Every substance has an energy field around it, and then it has a certain radiation shooting out of it in a certain direction in the earth. We have to find those radiations and bring them and see where they fit here, and then we can place everything. So it's taking some time. This will be, the instruments with which you measure all that will be, let's say, when we have them ready in a year's time or something, this will be part of an advanced course. Then when we go through all our courses, we enter into this. But you could use the instrument, for example, to see if you're an airy sign or an earthly sign, or that, just see where you are, what type of energy do you resonate with, and things like that. It fits everything into the key. Are we working, or are we? Yeah. So now, if I have here, let's say, qualities. Let's take examples. What could those qualities be? Now, in ancient medicine, you find the people using different ways of speaking about the body, of speaking about nutrition, of speaking about healing, than the modern ways, you know. And sometimes you hear people saying, oh, in ancient time they used to speak about, for example, wet and dry, or they used to say fiery and watery, or things like that. These were old ways of describing states of the body. But now, of course, because they didn't have the laboratories and analysis and all that, now we can't speak about 4 states of the body, and we go into detailed measurements, because these were not adequate. I mean, they were speaking about qualitative, you see. So here, if you take, for example, an emotion of energy, you have here the 4 qualities. Now, people here who work in Feng Shui, sometimes you wonder, why are all those systems, or why do they seem controversial? Why somebody arranges the Bagua arranges the colors or the elements according to the north-south. The compass, the other one, arranges them according to the door of the room. And then every room is different. Now, we should look at this. Every movement of energy creates 4 qualities. Now, the first movement of energy that we know of is north-south. You see, we know the compass directions. So automatically the compass directions creates the 4 qualities. This is automatic. But at the same time, let's take what other movements of energy can be there. I open the door of a room. From the door of a room, this is where, when I open it, this is where the air would come in. This is where the energy flows into the room. So the door of the room would have another key like this. So actually, you would have one like this for the door of the room. You'd have one like this, another one for the compass directions. Because nothing, it's not that simple. They can be superimposed and they're both right. Now you have the window there, and you have light. Now, light going in there creates the 4 qualities again, to its right, to its left, front, and back. So, but this doesn't exist yet, the light school in Feng Shui, but I mean, you can create your own schools. Any motion of energy creates the 4 qualities. Let's say an air conditioning vent here would create the 4 qualities automatically. An electrical conductor, or a pipe, or sewage thing going anywhere would automatically create the key here. So you see, now don't, instead of when we get mixed up about the system that people are doing, we go back on the energy level and we say any motion of energy creates that. In my body, I have 2 motions of energy. Any central motion of energy along the spine will create the right and the left. And that's why people in ancient times, they used to say, for example, when we say you're right, why are you right? Why is right associated with right? Or people of the right, you know, in ancient things. And people of the left, it shows you like 2, they're speaking about 2 qualities. But then you have energy coming up, but we know in our bodies that there's energy coming up and the energy coming down. So you could have a system in the body where this key goes like this, like that, and you have another system when the key goes like that. There's a system at day and there's a system at night. And then you could, this right and left means again putting this horizontally because you have polarity. So you have your own north-south axis. So you have again the key in this direction. And you can analyze yourself the qualities in the body with the keys. Now, how do I interact that? I can easily find the problem, and maybe this problem, by analyzing the key, all I have to do is a hand motion or something to balance. Once we know how the key works, it's very easy to balance. To understand it, just look at it like that as 4 qualities. Now, if I wanted to explain those 4 qualities, now how would I put a scale here? I want to say it has to be qualitative, has to be an explanation, something. So if I say, for example, in this area where energy is expensive, it's, let's say, growth or something. So if somebody comes and says, okay, I'll call that like a plant coming up, I can call that, or I can call it wood, or I can call it, you see? So a qualitative scale is you put a description. So where do you take the description? You don't invent one, you take it from nature. So you take it from nature. And like a Chinese would look at it in a way, he would say wood, and then the relationship of the fire to the wood, you see? So I would put, if this is the north and this is the south, I would put, let's say, a fire, a wood here, a fire here, a metal here. You know, you can place it. It's just he's describing what's happening in the key. Now, the Arab scientists would go in a different way. They would say you have the the four, I mean, what, maybe they were mostly desert people there. They wouldn't have so much in their way of describing things. They wouldn't have, let's say, wood, but they didn't have forest, or they would say metal and all that. Maybe, what would they say? They understood humidity. They understood dryness. They understood cold. They understood warm. They understood, I mean, it's the things that they understood. So they take the four qualities. And then they tell you, now, you balance, if it's nutrition, if it's health, whatever they're speaking about in any science, it's the balance of those elements. So those elements then, irrelevant of what you choose, depending on your schools, and every school has different, but I could just go around like that and ask you, and there would be probably 20 different scales here. So, okay, everybody who can think of a scale, then raise your hand and give it to me. Let's see how you... First, we start with the Feng Shui people. Yeah?
Sorry, my mind was wandering.
You have the four. I want to put a scale here. Well, this is your Bagua. In Feng Shui, it would be your Bagua.
With the elements, the 5 elements inside.
Okay? Or you can place the colors if you want. So in Feng Shui, you would have, what would you put to my right?
The wood
Okay, or the green,
or the green.
something like this. When you say that, now you know when you say, I put the green here, you know why?
That's what I was doing.
Yes, you know why you're saying green here, not because an ancient Chinese tradition tells you that green should go there. You see? And then maybe you see that light, this is a big window, and light comes in here. So you say, no, I'll put the green here. Somebody else says, no, but I'm a black hat sect, you know, the door comes this way. No, I'll put the green here. And then somebody said, no, the north, I'll put the green here. They are all superimposed keys. Actually, in a room like that, you might have 10 keys superimposed. At the end, the trick with biogeometry is to balance the 10 keys with one final key that sort of balances all. But you should be able to call those by any names you want. Now, let's say you don't want to use any Chinese or any colors or something like that. You want just to call them names. Then you use descriptions. What would you use as a description for this? Instead of green or, let's say, wood, something to do with growth, what would you use as a word? You invent your own system, what would you use? Okay. What would you use here when energy coming at you? Or here energy going away from you? Or here energy going down? I mean, you see, when you explain things, maybe in order to really digest something, you don't have to stick to any scale. You understand it and you have 1,000 words for it. So, and that's how you can explain it, you see. So if I tell you, give me 10 words for this. Okay, I want 10 words.
Prosperity.
Prosperity, okay.
Energizing.
Energy, okay. But remember, there's a here and here. But okay, here the vortex is coming this way. Okay, this is energizing. Another, we have 2 now. I'm still missing 8. What?
Female.
Could be, yes. Female is looking at an aspect of female. Reproduction, growth, continuance of life, and all that.
Sun and moon for negative.
Okay? Sun, moon, looking at certain aspects of sun and moon. But remember, in description, you are, the word you use is a general holistic thing. That means you're describing sun because of the plants of growth and all that. Okay, something else. We're now missing 6. They said expansion. Come on, find something. Something from Argentina. Come on. What? Growth. Yeah, the word grow, something that grows. Okay, you can say grow. Okay. Something else?
No, it's happiness.
Happiness, okay. Happiness is related to an expansion of energy usually, okay.
Also like us versus, we versus I.
Maybe. It could be a path of knowledge, because your growth of knowledge could be a path. Wisdom, I wouldn't call it, remember what I said before? Wisdom would be the final balance of the four. This is beyond our means. This we ask for. We can only do intellect. So we take each one separate. Come on, I'm missing 5 names now. High note and low note. Okay, this is, the note is getting higher, and here the note sound is getting lower. Okay?
Beginning and end.
Beginning and end. Okay, beginning and end. The quality. Well, if you get to soft, you could apply soft here and soft here. It depends. The growth at a certain spot here, you'd have it strong. At a certain, then here it would be softer. So you could apply soft to growth. And you could also apply soft to the other side. So something like soft might fit in 2 things. You could say warm and cold. You could say here warm, cold. Because you associate, you could say day and night, because you associate warmth with life, cold.
Loudness and quiet.
What? Loudness?
And quiet.
Okay, loudness associated with motion and life and all that, and quiet associated with the other world. Okay. Strength and weakness. Okay, because this is going up would be strength and this would be weakness. Okay, that means what? That means that in reality, I want you to feel those things. Now, when I walk that way, I'm just walking now, okay? Will there be an energy effect here and an energy effect here? Okay. Okay, but then I come back. You don't want me to keep going out and not come back. I have to come back sometime, okay? No, but this, even emotion, even going like this, when you're to my right is different than when you're to my left, and then when I go this. So you should be, yes, everything, qualities, that means all of a sudden you are sensitive to everything now. Because the key, look at this room, and there may be, beside the main keys, you could have hundreds of little secondary keys. Whether you're writing, am I putting this to my right, putting this to my left, doing this? I mean, very small things like that. Even, let's say, when you're eating, put your plate in front of you. You've arranged things on it. There are qualities in the food. You could turn your plate until it fits the key. And I'll show you how to measure that. If you do that, if something in that plate is too heavy, brings you allergy or whatever it is, you'll eat that plate. Once you adjust it like that, you'll feel as if it's a meal it's so light, it's so refreshing, because you just balanced it. So I want you to, this should be, you feel the universe in the motion of energy. It applies to everything here. It even applies to the expansion of the universe, how it all began and how it all ends. Because if it's expanding, that means there's a motion of energy. If there's a motion of energy in the expansion, that means that there are the qualities, you see. So, and what happens when the universe is expanding? You start, you go somewhere, and you come back at the end, you see. There's a continuous, at the universe expand, a continuous arising and a continuous going in, a continuous arising. You can imagine this, say, okay, this is where life emerges and this is where life ends. It's like a black hole here. This is where energy gets sucked in, interacts, and new life emerges, or whatever, you see. This is your key. It's very important to understand that any motion produces 4 qualities around it. You can apply it to anything, to a thought. You can put thoughts here, you can emotions here, anything. And I want you to have this as your basic concept in anything, how you feel it. And maybe once we have those instruments ready by next year, you will find out how they open a new world to you. Yes?
So this is really more of a balancing out.
It
This
is.
key is really about balance.
Well, it's balance if you manage to work with it properly.
Right.
But let us say here, there's a room, and okay, a square room like this, and then the door is here. Now the energy coming in like this. This side of the key will be restricted, and this will have so you see, so any door that's not in the center of the room will create a key imbalance and will have to be corrected. We have to find ways of correcting it. So it's very important to understand the concept of, very simple, that whenever there is a flow, it creates a quality to its right and the quality to its left, quality towards where you're going, quality towards where you're leaving. It's very simple. Okay, any questions about that?
It's similar to the yin and yang concept.
Yin and yang
Yeah.
would be they would fit around the key. You could take the 64 trigrams and look and place them as a more detailed and find them where they fit in there. You see? The thing is, I want you to, once you know this simple concept, you go into whatever you're studying. Go into there and come out with something new. After you do the 3 days of radiesthesia, you should be able to measure all those things. But what I want you to understand first is that a scale of quality is descriptive, it is repetitive, and it is unlimited. It goes from the smallest to the biggest.
What was the last you said?
It goes from the smallest to the biggest. I mean, to infinity, the smallest to the biggest. There is no, it's unlimited, totally unlimited. You know, in ancient Egypt, the nature god of wisdom was called Tahuti or Thoth, or in the Greek they called him Hermes. In the emerald tablet, they were saying what's above is like what's below. This shows you that in the atom, you have the whole universe. Now, people were thinking that we're speaking about this just shapes of things. No. Every similar motion is in communication with everything that's similar in the universe. So the atom itself, you have the center. And this center, you have the nucleus, protons and neutrons and all that, and then you have around it all the electrons in different numbers. So it's like a small universe. Now, this small universe is in resonance with all the universes, because there are multiple ones, visible and invisible, because we speak about the invisible, I say universes, there are many invisible ones, and it will pulsate and change with the relationship to all of them together. So every little thing feels, so the atom feels what's happening there. You tell me, how come the atom feels? How can an atom feel something? If we go and speak about creation, how in the beginning, they say in the beginning there was a Big Bang. The Big Bang would mean duality, something that has split things into positive and negative. Okay, when you split two things in positive and negative charges, like a stone falling in water, the wave goes up and down. The natural tendency is after a bit to go back again. You see? Or the positive and the negative. If they come too close, they cancel each other. If they don't interact, they'll go away. Okay? So it can't be just a Big Bang. See, it can't be just a Big Bang, because Big Bang means you've created duality. Duality will cancel itself very quickly. Okay, what happened? How come we're still here? That means there is something else than the Big Bang. It means there is a law, a secondary impulse with the first one. There are two impulses, not one. Duality plus a law of motion that takes the positive and the negative, turns them so they don't get too near or too far. And those two little things, in comparison to the circle, it's like having an orange here and another orange in California. And one is turning around the other so quickly that wherever you come and you put your hand, you'll always feel an orange. So you get a mega orange twice the size from here to California. But what's the constituents of that orange? The constituents. Can you say oranges? Can't you? Can't be, because oranges are not even 0.01% of the mega orange. It's really negligible, the size of the oranges to the whole orange. So what is the whole orange made of? This huge thing, what is it made of? Well, energy, yes. Motion. It's motion. Okay, but let's see what kind of motion. I mean, motion could be, the concept I want you just to change the idea of motion from one to the other and look at it as resonance. Let's say I have a lot of energy. You have little energy. I do healing on you at a distance. All of a sudden you have more energy and I lost energy. So I would tend to think that I gave you energy. In reality, no. In reality, we entered into resonance. And both of us ended up in a certain level of energy. If my level through the resonance is less than what I had, I have given this extra to my surroundings. If what you got is more than what you had in the resonance, you've taken it from your surroundings through the resonance, you see. Because otherwise, the process would be too slow. When we do healing at a distance, it doesn't take time, you see. That means it can't be a flow, because we know that nothing moves more than the speed of light. So if I'm starting to diagnose or do healing at a distance between here, let's say, and China, so every aspect, every measurement I will do would take, let's say, 2-3 minutes to go and come, but it doesn't happen. It's instantaneous. That means we're using something that is not using linear transmission. It's a different thing. In Germany, about 4 years ago, I saw in Basel, there was an institute who were using what they call a brain tracer, and they had a person in south of Germany and a person in north of Germany. And today, of course, you can hook them to computers to one, I don't know, thousandths of a second or what, and you hook them to a computer, and then they would ask one of them to look at the picture of the other. Now, the moment they speak about different things, and then all of a sudden, while they're speaking, they show the picture of the other guy, and they notice that a change of brainwave happens on the receiver on the other side, but the same change in brainwave happens to this one. So it can't be sending because it happened to this one. Now, the most interesting is this has been done so many times, but the new thing here is that the computer didn't record any time interval at all. They happened instantly. They couldn't, to 1,000th of a second, there's no way that any waveform could have traveled between both. So they said, okay, something is different. So they started calling them by different names, like a psi field or things like that, that there are different ways that we react, like in, now they're starting to think like in quantum physics, where something could be moving here, and at the same time something could be moving at the other end of the universe with totally unrelated, you can't find any cause and effect relationship, and no time lapse. So here is something, resonance here doesn't follow time and space. And that's the nice thing about it now. When we look at those things, the nice thing about resonance is that if it does not follow time and space, and why I'm saying we are going to take resonance in qualitative measurement instead of sending and receiving, because in the normal sense of energy interaction or energy healing, if energy moves from one place to the other, it cannot. How can I move energy? The word move means related to time and space, means it has to go forward in time and space. You cannot have something moving back in time and space. You see? So you cannot have an energy now. I cannot project energy now to 10 years ago. So, but we know that in resonance, I can actually, the moment I connect to something 10 years ago, its effect will be there. Of course, nobody's here today to tell you that, but you can imagine a scenario like that. We look, for example, at a battle that Ramses the Great was doing, and he was wounded in battle. And so we connect to this time, and then we perform healing on him. And then we might go back into historical papers and find that it's going to say that Ramses was mortally wounded, and then he recovered miraculously. His doctors said that he had a miraculous recovering by the help of his doctors. Now, his doctors then wouldn't know that they got help from the future from 3,000 years later, that they were getting help from somebody who was just trying to prove to a group that you could go backwards in time. But then, 3,000 years ago, the effect is already there, because on a certain level in resonance, you're beyond time and space. So imagine the beauty of building a science or qualitative physics, where now time and space are irrelevant to us. We can become everything. Communication for us is becoming. It is not communicating with. Because the moment, you see, if one of you, all you healers know that, the moment you connect, even at a distance, even if you don't tell me, I can check your body. The moment you connect, I'll see differences. I'll see the pattern of that person on the other side. I'll see the pattern here. And I will know then, when you're connected, that means you're one with the other person. And we do that sometimes a lot in healing. Somebody tells me, can you prepare, see what biosignatures I want to put on my medal, let's say, and somebody's here and he says, I want it for my husband, but he didn't come with me. Can you prepare one for him? So all I would say, okay, just think of him. I check first, and then I would think and check again. When I check for the second time, I must find the differences. But if it's her husband, if it's a different sex, then it's easy. I check for an organ of the other sex. And if I find the organ of the opposite sex, if I find it, that means we're in tune. So if a lady is here and I should find, let's say I can check for a prostate on her. Of course, I don't know. She can't have a prostate. But if I find it, that means he is here now, not she. She is not here, the husband's here. So we can check and add all the biosignatures and all that, and then do whatever we want to do. So you see, so here it's actually becoming. She can become him anytime. You can actually become anything. If I want to check the mineral contents of Mars, it's very easy. You get a picture of Mars and you keep looking at it while I check the energy field of your body. And I get the different metals and try resonance with each of them, and everyone that resonates with your body is up there. You see? But here there are some tricky things, because there are some things that exist in your body already and might not exist there. But the interesting thing, if you get things that you know don't exist in your body and you find them there, then you're discovering new things. But you see, it's a very nice thing that you know that you are not bound by time and space in whatever you want to do. It's a fantastic thing. Imagine that you have a physics that is beyond time and space, can go forwards in time, can go backwards in time, is not limited by any speed, is not limited by anything. You want to know something, you become that thing. I mean, it's wonderful, isn't it? But then we're going to go when we go into the first day of radiesthesia, we are going to go into the mystical aspects of all that in detail. Because when you become something, now it's not a game here, you see. You don't want to pollute the thing that you are actually in tune with. When you become one with the universe, we want you to balance it, not to disrupt it. That means we have to change your energy system before you can do that. How do I change mine? First of all, you might be very good on the conscious level, but you might have so many things on the subconscious level that could cause problems if thrown out to another energy system that is sensitive to this aspect. So the first thing is unclogging all your energy system. Now I'm going to tell you something, and it's very important that you listen to that, but I would advise you one thing. For the next 2 minutes, you just put your finger in your ears. Don't listen to me. Because if you listen to me, your responsibility might be too much. So if you're not ready for it, just put your finger in your ear and don't listen at all to what I'm saying. If you listen to me, that's your problem, okay? I mean, I will. Okay. Now, yeah, usually we think that we are responsible for what we do. And that's normal, okay? But now that you know what resonance is, you are responsible for what you see. You are responsible for what you hear. You see, when you look at a tree, there is resonance. Now you are responsible for the energy field of that tree. You see? So you are responsible for everything you see. Now you tell me, what about hearing? Why do you say I'm responsible for what I hear? I mean, I speak, you hear me, now you're responsible? Yes, of course, because when you hear me, that means you're in resonance with me. Forget about the thing that energy is going out and you hear it. No, you're in resonance with me. So that means by hearing me, you're changing me. At the same time, you see? So you're responsible to what is happening to me. Now, when you know that, your responsibility now is so great that whatever you see, whatever you hear, you're responsible for everything around you. You're responsible for the reality that you perceive. You carry a responsibility. Now you made a mistake. I told you, put your fingers in your ears. You didn't want. Now your responsibility is there. See? But now that you're aware of it, it was always there on the energy level, but now that you're aware of it, it is really 10 times greater, because now you know it. You see? So we will have to correct our energy systems first before we do any qualitative work and before we do resonance. We have to change our system first. But there are ways of doing that. Okay, now I think we continue, huh? Okay. Now, let us take one aspect that we were speaking about later when we were speaking about qualities. When we interact with things around us, we have to look at how we interact, because we must understand that although we're speaking about resonance, but the waves traveling or reflected or something from one thing to the other cause such resonance. So we must know first of all what happens with all those waves around us, media waves and all those things, what's happening with them. Now, we'll do some simple explanation of waves. Now, here, what I've drawn here is a blue wave moving vertically like this, okay? And the red one, a red aspect moving horizontally like this. So usually waves, they move along two planes, like this and like this. And then we call them vertical and horizontal, but sometimes they could be rotating, but they still keep the angle between them. Now, every thing in nature has either the two waves or one wave. Humanity has only the horizontal wave. Our wavelengths of our fields move horizontal. When we emit waves, they move horizontal. All things that are good for us have horizontal waves. Now, the vertical aspect is very harming. What has the vertical aspect? Now, the first thing that had the vertical aspect is the sun. The sun produces vertical and horizontal. Well, how come the sun is the source of life and it produces both? Because the sun is a source of life for all kinds of creatures, whether it's vertical or it's horizontal. But we can, when we interact with the sun, we get the benefits of the horizontal, but we get the harm of the vertical. Otherwise, the sun wouldn't cause you skin cancer if it didn't have the vertical aspect, you see. Now, the sun hits onto the plants. The plants, they cancel the vertical, transform the energy of the sun into whatever chemical compounds and all that, but they reflect only the horizontal. The moon gets both aspects, reflects back only the horizontal. That's why you can't get skin cancer from the moon, you see. And in Germany, they have a saying, they say, good moon, bad sun. It's the peasants in Germany say that. Good, you say that too? Guter Mond, schlechter Sonne, huh? Because it has both. Now there's something else that's very important. All natural materials reflect only the horizontal, and all man-made materials reflect both. And this is a very, very dangerous thing. all our buildings and all like that reflect both. But when we go out in nature, all what we're getting is the horizontal. We're not getting the vertical. And that's why you feel, now, vertical,
The sun has also vertical.
yes, but when you're in nature, the vertical is cancelled, and you get only, all natural objects reflects back the horizontal and don't reflect the vertical at you. Unnatural objects will reflect both. You're going to do that in the radiesthesia class. We're going to go out and make measurements. We'll adjust pendular instruments on the vertical and see if a tree is reflecting it, if the wall of the building is reflecting it. If a wooden wall is reflecting vertical, because, let's say, paint makes a difference or doesn't make a difference. A painted wall, okay, what kind of paint is on it and all that. So you can actually test all materials for this reflection of the vertical. The vertical is disease. If you test your body and you find in your energy field any vertical aspects, that means disease in the body. This is very, very important. Now, when all the species in nature who use divine wisdom build their houses, build their nests, build their whatever they build there, somehow they always use natural materials, and somehow they end up always with balanced energy in there. We are the only species who builds haphazardly and end up increasing the vertical and making ourselves sick. Just by walking in a town without trees, in any area without trees, but in 10 minutes, you'll be full of so much vertical in you that you'll feel it. Now, electricity, and that's has both vertical and horizontal. Now, all waves of communication have vertical and horizontal. You see? So we were just speaking about the danger of the information age, and we said it might be the end of humanity because quantitatively it's so much different than what we can take. But qualitatively, it's even more destructive. Quality-wise, it fills us with vertical energy. That vertical energy means cancer, means all those things, because you can detect cancer in the body years before it comes with detecting vertical emanations. Now, we have another problem, and that is Earth radiation. Earth radiation is a form of energy that comes out of the Earth when we have certain crossings of underground rivers at certain angles or certain cracks. And the Earth radiation here, we mean by Earth radiation is when those emanations or vortices that come out have a lot of vertical. And when you sleep in such a spot, then we can say that within so much time you'll end up with, when they discovered that, they used to say cancer, but now we could say immune deficiency is a more general word. See, so, and that is maybe a very important aspect now, that how come people are speaking of body electricity? Everybody speaks now about body electricity. If you had body electricity, then when I feel a bit down, I could just plug my hand into the electric outlet and feel, yeah, why not? If it's electricity. Why should electromagnetic fields be harmful to my body? If my body has body electricity, that means I also have electromagnetic fields. I should be replenished by them. See? But electricity is not electricity. That means what I have is not the same kind of electricity. There are two types of electricities. What I have is a horizontal waveform. The other is horizontal and vertical. So it can't be the same. See?
Can I ask you a question?
Yes?
In Germany, they say Wasserabend, what you were talking about when you speak over.
That's what I said, Wasserade, and that's the underground river crossings.
Say it in English,
I said underground water springs or underground water flows. Yeah, they don't have one word for it like Vassrader. I mean, Vassrader is just saying water flow. But when they say the word or water, Ader is like a vein. Yeah. So when they say it's a water vein, we don't use, there's no similar word in English. So I say underground streams or such a thing. Now, we're going to speak about that in detail because in the 1930s, and I'm going with you slowly to the beginning of two very important sciences at the time, and that's the modern geobiology and biobiology, two sciences that started in the 1930s or around the turn of the century. How they started at the time, there was the huge cancer scare in Europe because we are used to think of disease as being transmitted. 100 years ago, we couldn't accept the idea of disease being transmitted because people were taught that disease arises from your own evil doings. And when Pasteur and those people said, no, they come from organisms, then we couldn't accept that. It was not accepted. And I think today, both are valid. Both are valid. The concept that you can create your own disease inside you, and that's all about psychosomatic things. And also, but we have come to feel at ease with the idea of something, a virus or a bacteria or something hitting us. Then all of a sudden, people are getting cancer with no known cause. It's something they're getting it, they can't protect themselves, and it was a huge scare. What do we do? I mean, how can we tackle that? So, while the medical people were trying to find solutions, the population in general had a big scare, and they were looking for answers. So, the answers came from the least expected. It came from the farmers. The farmers of Germany came and said, okay, if you want to know about cancer, we will tell you everything about it. We know how it happens and everything. We'll tell you exactly where it happens. Cancer is an earth-related disease because we have cancerous trees, we have cancerous spots, areas, trees along a cancerous path or a cancerous area will have deformed growth, will have sort of tumors coming out of them. So they didn't call them cancerous. I mean, the word cancerous is from the medical field, but they spoke about earth radiation, Erdstrahl, they just spoke about that, earth radiation. And of course, everybody told them, this is nonsense, there's nothing called earth radiation, there's nothing we can measure. So the farmers said, you don't have to measure, you can see. I mean, look at a tree that's deformed, then look at another one that's deformed, draw a line between them, and you have a line of earth radiation. They tell them, we don't put our animals on such spots because they'll have stillbirth, they'll give no milk, the meat, when you slaughter them, will be all like that very tough meat and all that. So we avoid those cancer spots. So it's very simple. All you have to do is avoid the cancer spots, and you won't have cancer because cancer comes from that. And this was very strange. I mean, how come the farmers are teaching us? So a few scientists came. One of them is called von Pohl, and there are a few others. And he came in one of the towns in Germany. It's called Willisburg, I think. And he made a survey of all cancer cases, put them on the map, and he found a very strange thing, that 80% of the cancer cases were located along 10% of the area. Now, in that 10% of the area, on that pattern, was an area with extensive underwater streams. So the farmers were right in a way. Earth radiation had to do with that. Now, That's the beginning of geobiology, the science of understanding radiation of the Earth. Biobiology, at that time, started researching what happens when this thing goes into a building. How is it reflected, what's intensified, what happens when it goes, what happens to our health. That's the beginning of both. And are we finished now? Now, I told you about how we interact with the vertical type of radiation here. Now, in Earth radiation, like I told you, when Van Paul made his statistical survey, and many others made it later on, in the 1930s, they discovered that statistically, cancer is something related to your location. Now, at that time, you know, all the farmers in Europe many of them, they use water dowsers to find water. And this is, water dowsing is not exactly like mental dowsing, where it's related in a way, but it's different. Water dowsing is a very natural thing because your body is made of 70% water. So if you go over any water patch, any moving water, because when water moves, it makes friction. And this friction radiates some energy. When you go over it, your body feels it. The same thing like when the moon affects the tide, it affects the water in you, so you have an inner tide inside you. So we are a water being 70% water. So it's very easy when you go on a water patch, something happens, there's a tide inside you that moves. Now, how can you feel that? If you go like that and you put your hand out like that and there's water, you'll feel a small tremble like that in your hand. But it might be so little that not everybody could feel it. But if you hold a branch, a twig, a green branch, because it should be an extension of your water system, of the energy field, you hold the green branch, it's like extending your antenna. This little trembling will become a bigger trembling like this. So the farmers used to go and they used to walk like this, and whenever there's a strong water crossing, when on a water crossing, then this energy is stronger because you have two paths crossing. In the middle there's a vortex coming up like this. So when you go in that vortex, your body feels it straight away, so the twig goes like that. So there is nothing psychic about it. This is a very natural thing that we are affected by water like we are affected by moon, the movement of the moon. Let's say if you want to cut your hair, then do it when the moon is waxing, not when it's waning, because the energy, the water is going up, and when you cut your hair in that moment, it will wax and it will become better later on. If you cut it when the moon is going down, it will become weaker. So we are affected by the motion of water. So the dowsers, they just come and say, okay, this area has underground water crossings. Now, we won't go more into Earth radiation now. We'll do that tomorrow when we start going into radiesthesia, but we'll continue. I'm just giving it to you as an example of vertical Earth radiation, you see, because if we would have believed those people who started this research, if we would have believed the geobiologists and the biobiologists in the 1930s, we wouldn't have had 80% of the cancer cases today. But why do we discard the research? Because the biobiologists made a fatal mistake after when there came the age of industrialization. The fatal mistake was we are detecting not only Earth radiation, but we are detecting electromagnetic fields, and they are bad. Now they move against the modern technology. And all of a sudden, it's the black sheep. They are the people who saying everything is bad, you know. And so this is why it's whenever in biobiology there's a certain research, somebody can influence another research to show the opposite. You know, somehow they keep it controversial, so it never really went into universities, into things, because they try to keep it controversial, and I think this is a very, very big mistake, because people have paid for that with cancers, with all things like that, because now if in the 30s, 80% of cancers were due to Earth radiation, now it's probably 50-50. 50% Earth radiation and 50% electromagnetic fields. So people do not, until this moment, they do not understand the importance of dealing with those things. They think, okay, I mean, all these people are just spending their time, you know, I mean, they're against everything, you know, people, as if we're fanatics who are against everything. But really, 80% of cancer cases could have been saved, because you can enter any place, and it's very easy. If I have a bed like that, I can test, and if I find the spot on the bed where I detect any vertical radiation, I can tell you exactly the person sleeping in that bed will have cancer in this spot in his body in so many years. It's very easy to detect. But until then, you see, from the first day, he will have problems in that area of his body. He could have backaches, he could have immunity problems, he could have frequent allergies, he could have, I mean, there are so many things that lead up to it. And all you have to do sometimes is just move the bed 1 foot, and the thing is gone. So imagine that so many cases of cancer, so many lives could have been saved, or quality of lives could have been made better by moving a bed 1 foot, if we become aware of all that. And that's a very big problem, that if we do not become aware about Earth radiation and electromagnetic fields, there is no way our immune system is going to survive. So the media now, the information age, is putting the vertical radiation into our body, because everything crossing our body has vertical. Now there's another problem, and that's even a much, much bigger problem here. This bigger problem is, whenever you think something negative or do something negative, the body can create vertical radiation. You see, you can actually produce the same vertical wave as in Earth radiation and as electricity, just by negative actions. Different, I mean, they're different on every level. On a mental level, you could produce them. On an emotional level, you could produce them. On a physical level, you could produce them. A simple lie, a very simple lie, will produce a vertical negative wave. Imagine that. So maybe our morals are not just a way of preaching morals, but maybe they have a base in reality. See? So now this gives us a new way of seeing psychosomatic things. Because you think that psychosomatic things, that, okay, my negative emotions and negative thoughts can somehow make me sick, and positive emotions, positive thoughts can make me better. Okay, but what you don't understand, the mechanism here, is that they actually send in vertical waves through your body, as if you are living permanently, provided of course you're doing whatever you're doing permanently wrong, as if you are living on Earth radiation or living in your place. You're generating, so you fight against the age of information and fight against Earth radiation while you're generating it inside your body. Now, there's another thing that we should take into consideration. When we increase the wavelengths in the air, in the age of information, by resonance, modern technology by resonance will enter into resonance with other vertical. All the verticals enter into resonance together. So in a place where you had that amount of Earth radiation, let's say 30 years ago, today, by resonance with electromagnetic, you have that amount. So we are actually increasing even the Earth radiation. We're increasing it today maybe 100-fold with electromagnetic waves. But what are we also increasing? We are increasing the negative emotional, psychological, mental actions in the body. They become natural. You see, well, maybe you would look at a child and say, this child seems to lying for that child or doing that seems very natural. When we were young, you know, we would say that. Yeah, I mean, it didn't feel good, and many things that didn't feel good with us, they feel very good now with them, because we have put the vertical that is in resonance with those actions. So now we cannot speak about immoral actions if we are actually fueling them. So the danger here is also on a psychological, mental level, there's a disruption. Of course, if you tell people that, I mean, say, hey, he's crazy now, he just wants to make, he has something against modern technology, he just wants to make us sort of fear all this thing or go away from it and all that. But no, it's not that. What we want to do is actually very simple. We want to cancel, if we can find a way to cancel the vertical from our modern technology, then I can actually transform the media into called scientifically carrier waves. A carrier wave is a wave that carries your voice, carries your picture, carries whatever it is, and takes it through things. It's penetrative. So, for example, my voice wouldn't go, but put on a carrier wave, it would, the carrier wave can go through the wall, so it can take my voice with it. And so carrier waves can carry information. Now what if I put a form of healing energy on that carrier wave that has the ability to cancel the vertical and balance the horizontal?
It helps the other, it helps resonate.
Not only that, you would have the information age will be all of a sudden, in a split second, it would be turned to a mass healing age. You'd have the golden age in just like that, if you become aware of that. The problem is, von Paul said in the 1930s about Earth radiation, and we still doubt what he's saying till today. So we should do our best, but whether we can really do it, that's how we did that a few times. We did that in California 2 years ago, and what we did was place some colors in the studio in such a way that they create a certain energy quality that balances the radiation. And when you watch the TV set there, you get a healing energy out of the TV set. All the vertical is cancelled. Then we did it last year in a program called Health is Your Wealth. We did it twice, and they told the people now, after I phoned Larry Gust, who's an electrobiologist with us here, I told him, Larry, before they connect with me to speak on that radio station, go to the studio, take your pen and put a few colored dots till you create the energy field in the studio, so that when somebody listens to this, they will feel this healing energy come out. And the strange thing that happened is, Larry had gone to the lady who is called Jeannie Genet, who was doing this program, and he went to her apartment to do some electrobiology work. And he did his electrobiology work, and then he balanced the room. He took 2 colored pens, put 2 dots, made his balancing, and said now it will be okay. He didn't explain to her what he did. he's very reserved. He wanted to stick to professional electrobiology. And then he did that. The next day, two people come in from the studio, a man and his wife, and he comes in and he says, there's something strange. What's this light, this glow in the middle of the room? And then Jeannie says, I don't know what glow. And she says, there is something definite in the middle of the room. I see it. He was a bit clairvoyant. I see something here. His wife said, I don't see anything, but when she would go like that, she says, my hair feels something when I go in it. And then he goes out. Then a doctor, a friend of hers, came there and went, and he's in this light, he started getting something, and he said, I'm getting into a state similar to what happened to me in an operation 15 years ago when I got an out-of-body experience. And then it was very strange there. So afterwards, a friend of hers, an Indian shaman, was phoning her that she was going to make a program with him weeks later. And on the phone he said, hey Jeannie, what's that column of light I perceive in the middle of your room? So she said, what, do you perceive it from where? He says, there's a column of light in the middle of your room. Something is happening there. The energy is radiating through the phone line. And she didn't know what was happening. So she called Larry and said, hey Larry, what did you do in the apartment? Something is strange. And Larry said, it's not me, it's an Egyptian called Dr. Ibrahim Karim. He should be somewhere in Florida. So if you want to go into all those spiritual things, please contact him. So she contacted me and said, we want to know exactly what this is, so we'll put you on our radio program for 2 shows. First it was one thing, and people started recording it and using it for healing and meditation, so they asked for another thing. So that's when I asked Larry to go in the studio and put the colors there. And the people started sending in and phoning in and saying, we really feel this. So you see, this is just to show that you can really transform the media emanation into something that will really help the immune system, whether it's human, plant, or whatever it is. It will really make a huge difference. I had used that in Egypt before on a television program. It was a series, a 30-day series, but there I managed to convince them to put we did colors, we did shapes, we did things with the decoration. I stood with the people there and we made the decoration of the studio because it was there for 30 days. And we achieved a fantastic effect, and people used to go there, and after I finished they used to put the tapes, and when they were not feeling okay, they'd put one of the tapes and see it. So it is not so strange. When we say the media is going to could cause, or the age of information could cause global life extinction, but with a little help it could introduce the golden age, just with a little help by changing this. Now in radiesthesia, when we go on the 3rd day, one of the exercises I'll let two of you measure each other, and I'll ask always one to produce in his body vertical electrical waves, and let the other one measure it, and then do it. You don't have to start doing things in this room. No, all you have to do is imagine them. But you have an hour where you can imagine, replay all the vices you can think of, and see how strong you can emit a vertical wave that the other person beside you can actually measure. And then after you do that, you change and the other person tries it. This is made just to prove a point, because you have to see it to believe it. You don't have to believe what I tell you. You should be old enough not to do that. Otherwise I'll tell you lots of stories. So you have to check on that. So this is the situation. We want to do something with this. Now, what happened is the people in geobiology, it was the science of geobiology that also started, like I said, looking for spots with Earth radiation. and trying to avoid them. So whenever I wanted to build a house, I'd get a geobiologist to determine where I had a problem, and I'd avoid it. They have many devices to sort of reflect back that Earth radiation in the Earth or disperse it and all that, but all with problems, all those devices. And the institutes are always, everybody's saying that the other ones doesn't work. The problem is they work well and then they get impregnated, because Earth radiation is a carrier wave. And it will be halted for some time, but after a bit it will go through. So in biogeometry we don't do that. We have a completely different way of dealing with them. But while they were actually researching that, they found something very strange, that some areas that had underwater streams had Earth radiation that was very beneficent, that cured everything. So somewhere there was something that now could balance things. And this is when they started going to this place to see what's the qualities that we find there. Now every spot that they found had remnants of old sacred place. Either it had a modern church on it, or if you dig a bit you find some ancient whatever monuments from whatever, but it always, all the good spots had something to do with sacred monuments at a certain time. So, and it's very strange, they never made a mistake. I mean, they're both, because some people who use normal dowsing, they measure on some scales, they measure the intensity of energy, and you could make a mistake if you find the spot. If you're not well trained in it, you could mistake a bad spot and think that, oh, I've discovered the holy spot, you know, and it's a cancerous spot. You must be able to have instruments that really differentiate, because some people use Bovis scales and use things that are mental scales and so many things. They're never accurate. You have to go and be able to differentiate. This is not something to play with, that you think you discover a good spot and at the end you end up with cancer, you see. So it's, but strange enough, they never touched the bad spots and they always found the good spots. Now in ancient times, for example, when they wanted to build a city, they came and first of all they would find the good spot, and this would be the center of the city, this would be the temple, this would be whatever they put there. But there were ways, after they used different dowsing methods to find it, they would get sheep and make a small corral like that and put the sheep in it and leave them for a month. And then come afterwards, and when they slaughter the sheep, they look at the quality of the meat. And especially things, delicate things like the liver and things like that, they keep looking at the meat. And if they see strange deformations, then this power spot is not good. If they see the sheep becoming very healthy, and they see the meat really very rosy and things like that, and the liver very clear, then it's a very good spot. And there are other ways. If they see too many ants, then it's an indication that it's Earth radiation. There are things like that. If you see pigeons circling around the area, then it's probably a very good spot. So they used natural things. You'd look at the vegetation of the trees. If the trees have any twisting or any tumors on them, any growths, then the power spot is harmful. Between both, it's just a polarity. One of them, the Earth vortex, is turning one way, and the other is turning the other way. But you don't need any science or any scientific knowledge for that. All you have to do is have an eye for does this tree look okay or does it look okay. In the good spots, you're going to find that the vegetation has very vivid colors. You know, sometimes you enter somewhere and you feel as if the colors are alive, as if there's a luster like that. And that's what happens when you're on a good spot. The colors are really brighter and the leaves are a bit thicker like that. With a bit of training, it's very easy to find. And the other one, is also very easy to find. So they never made a mistake. In a book about the spots in Europe, they were saying about the strongest sacred spot in Europe. And I was looking, and I found that it was just 2 miles from where I live in Zurich. It's there, and they said this is the strongest spot in Europe. And it's in a private field, in a farmer's field. So I looked and said, there's something wrong there. I'll go and test it, but in a farmer's field, if it was really the strongest spot in Europe, it would have the biggest cathedral in Europe. I mean, they wouldn't have missed it. No way they would have missed it. But if everybody's missing, maybe they avoided it. So I went there. I said, but if it's 2 miles away from my home, if it's that strong, why not get some of that energy? But when I was going to that field, I saw some crooked trees. And I said, okay, now, if it's the strongest spot in Europe with crooked trees, should I measure it or not? Because I'm going to enter into tune with it. You see, and that's very dangerous. So I said, if it's that strong. So I said, okay, I'm wearing anyhow so many things and all the stuff. But I said, I'll do it very quickly, in a few seconds. And then if it's a bad one, I just go in the sun, clean myself, and do whatever rituals I do and all that. And I did it. I found it a very negative spot. That's why everybody avoided it. And I felt, with all the things I had, I felt sick for 3 days. Not really sick. I managed to get myself okay, but I had this feeling of nausea here for 3 days. Yeah, really bad. You know, when you enter this, yeah.
When you enter in resonance, it stays with you?
No, but if it's that strong, if it's the strongest spot in Europe, it's like something hitting you in the face like that. You know you're not ready for it. And you just want to take your pendulum and you adjust it on the vertical, and all of a sudden you get a huge turning and you feel something in your head. It's like something flashing. You see, there's a big difference between just walking on it, you feel a bit bad, and tuning into it. You cannot measure without tuning into it. But you see, no problem. I'm lucky it just took a couple of days. But you could, there are some places, I mean, I wouldn't advise people to make it as their vocation in life to go and find the bad spots in houses. No, because it's really, you think you're doing a good thing. If you can go to everybody's bed, find the bad spot and make him avoid it, it's good. But you keep doing it, and charging your body with the vertical. And once your body is charged with too much vertical, you'll be attracted to the vertical. So you'll find, for example, the things you start liking, I like this area, it will be full of vertical things because your body is full of vertical. So I don't advise that. We go in and produce the biogeometrical solutions. And then we check. Okay, so I think we have to close in for today, and tomorrow then we will go deeper into the qualities of energy and biogeometry and all that.